Good evening. I wish to call the Lee County Board of Commissioners to order on this Monday, March 16th of 2026. I must apologize. I was asked a question in the hallway, why aren't we at the Civic Center? Unfortunately, the Civic Center was pre-scheduled and we are here today. Please rise for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight, Lord. Just give us guidance and wisdom as we do the business of Lee County, Lord. Thank you for the ones that have come out here tonight, Lord. We just ask you also to give thanks for providing and giving us safe protection during the storms this afternoon, Lord. For the ones that did experience trouble, Lord, would you be with them? Again, Lord, give us wisdom, give us knowledge, Lord, as we go about the business of Lee County. We do thank you for each family represented here tonight, Father, and we do it all in your Son's name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have an add-on item to the consent agenda, item number 2L, which is a sole source request for payment system at the new Lee County Main Library. You have it at your location. Any additional items for the agenda?
Can we remove the closed session?
Oh, at the end, yes.
We can remove the closed session.
I think so.
Any further changes to the agenda? You have the agenda before you. We have an item to add to the consent agenda and remove the closed session. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I have-
Motion to approve agenda as amended.
Have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to recognitions, I will entertain recognitions, starting with Cameron Sharp. Do you have any recognitions to present?
I don't think I did.
No recognitions?
No.
Commissioner Reeves.
Not been notified of any.
Commissioner Vorbeck.
No, sir.
Commissioner Lovick.
I have none, thank you.
Commissioner Martin. No special recognitions. Okay. Let me go ahead and, I do have a special recognition. I have two of them. I wish to recognize the Sand Hills News for publishing a story criticizing Lee, Moore, and Harnett counties for their fictional conspiracy theory in which they state as an assault on free speech and transparency. In their report, they grotesquely distorted the facts and completely misrepresented the intent of the Lee County Commissioners' work sessions. The Sand Hills News coverage of our first public work session was severely lacking factual context and literally highlighted dramatic fiction. Reporters are supposed to report facts and not fiction. As for the campaign coverage, the editor found it necessary to severely edit my campaign response. The Sand Hills News does not get to dictate my campaign agenda. News services are supposed to report the news and not make news. Reader beware. Sand Hills News is nothing more than a group of activists masquerading as journalists, in other words, fake news. Thank you. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I wish to recognize the Lee County contingent of the Private John Grady Daughters of the American Revolution for attending the 250th First and Freedom Ceremony at the First Battle of the American Revolution
You can't help
in North Carolina, held Friday, 27 February, at Moores Creek National Battlefield in Curry, North Carolina. Attending from Lee County were Ann Yarmouth, Ronald Hewitt, Emily Hewitt, Carolyn Comfort, Gracie Hamilton, Jean Smythe, Stacy Nooning, Marcia Hanna, Bonnie Signer, and Andy Signer.
on that vote, I'm voting against that.
Next item on the agenda is a special presentation from the Southern Environmental Law Group. Who's representing that group? Please,
That doesn't usually happen.
state your name, please,
Thank you all.
and your address.
My address?
State your name and your address, please.
Okay, I'm Brooks Rainey. I'm a senior attorney at the Southern Environmental Law Center. I'm trying to remember our address, 605 West Rosemary Street, Suite 500, Chapel Hill.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak tonight. Are you Haley? Should I just tell you when to advance it, or am I in charge?
Take the time back.
I don't.
There's no time limit.
Oh, well, don't worry, I've got 10 minutes of content. I thought there was a time limit. I don't know, it's not doing anything.
Marshall's coming to the rescue.
Awesome. Thanks, Marshall.
Yes.
And I advance it, with the arrows.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. North Carolina is experiencing a major surge in data center development, driven by AI demand and accounting for 80% of new electricity demand forecast through 2030. This growth is raising concerns regarding power grid capacity and impact to local residents. The rampant growth of data centers throughout the South is unsustainable without safeguards that protect communities and the environment. In recent weeks, Chatham County, Gates County, and the town of Canton in western North Carolina have passed moratoria on the construction of new data centers and cryptocurrency mining facilities. Why are they doing this? The current regulatory structure does not contemplate data centers and needs updating, and we need to give the regulators time to do that. The regulatory landscape for data centers is rapidly evolving. Over 200 bills were proposed nationwide in 2025 alone. The focus has shifted toward balancing explosive infrastructure growth with grid reliability, sustainability, and community impact. States are increasingly active, with 21 states enacting over 40 laws in 2025 alone, covering zoning, taxation, and water and power consumption. A moratorium would give county leaders time to study the impacts of data centers on Lee County and to implement protections to mitigate the negative impacts. Because Lee County's UDO does not contemplate data centers, it is defensible to enact a moratorium to allow the county time to develop a plan for projects like the one proposed by Deep River Data. It makes sense to hit the pause button, allow the regulatory structure to catch up to this industry, rather than allowing data centers into Lee County now under today's largely absentee regulatory structure, which would leave Lee County without the protections that would be afforded the county in just a few years' time as the regulatory landscape develops. Another thing to consider is that the technology is rapidly developing. A lot of data centers are obsolete after 2 to 3 years due to rapid hardware advancements. In addition, companies are working to mitigate the exorbitant energy needs of data centers by developing more efficient cooling, lighting, and semiconductor processors. Pausing to let the technology catch up will allow future data centers in Lee County to be more efficient and to cause less harm. Because there is the potential for considerable harm. Before approving new data centers, there needs to be a thorough analysis of the center's energy needs, proposed firm and backup generator sources, water use and sourcing, utility rate implications, siting and zoning considerations, environmental impacts, and impacts on local communities, including noise pollution, air pollution, property values, and the local economy. A moratorium would allow Lee County to put protective measures in place. Some examples of why waiting makes sense, where better standards are just around the corner. Data centers use water to cool systems and can consume millions of gallons a day. In the Southeast, where states regularly experience heat waves and droughts, water usage from data centers can put stress on local water resources. Some data centers are starting to use recycled wastewater to cool their facilities. Water recycling should be prioritized to avoid consuming critical freshwater resources, but that is not yet required. Data centers are also extremely energy intensive. For example, in Memphis, the XAI data center is planning to use 150 megawatts of electricity. That's enough to power more than 100,000 homes. Many tech companies have made public commitments to reduce their greenhouse gas footprint and invest in clean energy. In some instances, to procure 100% renewable energy. But we're not there yet. Butler Well number 3 will never provide the amount of power needed to power a data center, and certainly not without fracking. It will require additional power. Residential customers should not be on the hook for dirty, expensive fossil fuel expansion just so electric utilities can make money off of data centers. Data centers have zero tolerance for power outages, even under the most extreme scenarios, which has led to the installation of dozens of backup generators around these facilities. They're usually fueled by diesel. This contributes to particulate matter pollution. These tiny particles worsen air quality and cause serious health conditions like asthma, heart attacks, and other respiratory problems. Backup power could be provided by batteries, which are a cleaner source, but that is not yet required. While the noise from data centers is not loud enough to cause hearing loss, it is a constant drone or hum. You can think of it like an air conditioner in your house, but amplified to an industrial scale. Residents who live near them have complained of migraines, disrupted sleep, and an inability to concentrate. And you're going to hear that there's a lot to be gained. For example, I think the speaker after me said in their email that a responsible data center operator could provide significant benefits, dramatic tax base expansion, hundreds of construction jobs, and well-paid permanent career opportunities close to home. The key words in that quote are responsible and could. Examples from around the state and the country do not bear this out. For example, the much-touted $10 billion Amazon data center in Richmond County turned out to be a $1 billion facility, and the hundreds of jobs turned out to be 50. Because North Carolina law has exempted data centers from all sorts of taxes, Amazon will never pay sales tax when it buys equipment, which is 4.75% to the state, 2% to Richmond County. None of that will go. And it will not pay tax on its electricity usage. The project was also given a 20-year property tax abatement. So where's this economic boom supposed to come from? This will change. There's already chatter in Raleigh about lifting some of these exemptions. A moratorium will give that time to play out. And data centers are not job creators, at least not locally. The facilities are typically remotely managed and operated, and the companies bring their own construction workers from outside of the state or at least outside of the county. Most data centers employ fewer than 200 people over the entire lifespan of the project. And after construction, only a few are needed, like a security guard or an IT guy if one of the servers breaks. As for property values, would you purchase that home to move your family into? So let's talk about the legality of a moratorium. In North Carolina, the law explicitly authorizes the broad use of development moratoria by local governments, subject to detailed procedural requirements such as public hearing, written findings, and a reasonable time duration. North Carolina courts have upheld local moratoria authority when statutory procedures are followed. It's a safe thing to do. A moratorium needs to include a statement of the problem, why you need it, a statement of which development approvals are subject to the moratorium. Like, we're going to update our UDO. We're going to, whatever it is you want to do in the time you're giving yourself. It has to have a termination date and a justification for the duration, why you need that much time. And finally, a statement of the actions you're going to take to address the issues. Federal law also allows for moratoria. The Supreme Court has expressly approved moratoriums as legitimate planning tools, requiring that they must be for a discrete period of time and justified by whereas clauses. So why do we need to move fast? In North Carolina, the permit choice rule would apply if a completed application for the project is submitted before you adopt the moratorium. What that means is that when the permit processing resumes, the applicant would have the option of having it reviewed under what was in place when it submitted it or what is in place now. So any protective measures you put in place in this time you would give yourself wouldn't help that project. So time is of the essence here. This is a bubble industry, and it's expanding incredibly fast because it's largely unregulated. So with whatever time I have remaining, which apparently is a lot, I won't abuse the privilege, I promise, Mr. Chair. I would like to talk a little bit about why the particular project that is talked about coming here is so dangerous. Deep River Data. We don't know much about them. We know they owned one other data center in North Carolina, that it employed 10 people, and that it paid a grand total of $5,000 in local property taxes. Maybe they are good, reliable actors. It would be nice to have some time to learn about that. What we do know is that they want to move fast. They recently told DEQ, we are excited to be moving full steam ahead. We know that it is extremely unlikely that they will extract any gas via vertical drilling at Butler Number 3. Certainly not enough to power a data center. I was asked to speak about data center moratorium, but if you would like me to talk at any point about drilling unit formation or the dangers of hydraulic fracturing, I am happy to, or I can leave you my business card and we can talk anytime. For now, I'm just going to raise 2 points. In their recent email to DEQ, Deep River Data asked directly about forced pooling, where neighbors who don't want fracking under their land are forced into the drilling unit anyway. This is going to be incredibly unpopular with your constituents and these people. The second point I will make is that if fracking is pursued, and I'm sure you know this, but in Lee County, the groundwater is deep and your shale resource is shallow. This is not like the Marcellus, where you've got thousands of feet between the two. We don't. The distance between your water and your gas is less distance than we know that fractures can travel. That means you could be opening a direct conduit between the shale formation and whatever chemicals they put in that fracking fluid and your groundwater. Is it worth that risk? And the final thing I'll say, because I think there's been some question about who SCLC is and what is our interest in this. We are a nonprofit environmental organization. We're not opposed to data centers, but we are focused in the Southeast on ensuring that where data centers are built, they rely on clean energy sources to power them. They pay their fair share for energy and water to protect consumers against excessive rate hikes. They do the least amount of harm possible to communities and natural resources, and they are approved, developed, sited, and permitted in a fair and transparent manner. With that, I'll stop. I'm happy to speak further at any point if you would like me to, and thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you, ma'am. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
We allow questions from the board
Okay.
to our speakers.
Okay.
Commissioner Martin, questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Everything about it was well received and well presented. So first of all, thank you for that. Questions. Did you Did you read through the Lee County moratorium that we had for?
The natural gas moratorium? Yes, ma'am, I was involved in that as well.
And your thoughts are?
On a natural gas, on a moratorium on drilling and gas extraction, my position is that it is legally defensible. There is a separate statute in North Carolina law governing moratoria and ordinances. I think it is a little riskier for challenge because there is the ban on local government ordinances against gas extraction. Data center moratorium is the safest option, but if you guys wanted to pursue a moratorium on gas extraction, I do think you would be on firm legal ground.
Give me 1 second here, I'm trying to read my own writing.
I have a lot of other thoughts about that if you wanted to talk at some
I'm
point.
sure you do. I'm sure you do. So you had, as you were leading up to the end of your presentation, you said that there is cutting technology coming down the road. We don't know when that is, and your proposal is you could buy yourself some safety by putting this in place now. Are you suggesting that newer technology is unavailable as of today?
Because data center development is happening so quickly, a lot of it is it's expanding so rapidly that as the technology develops, they're using the technology that is currently available. We're seeing more advanced technology in other countries, for example, that will certainly be available here at some point. I think that because this industry is getting more and more efficient, waiting is a good idea. I also think if you hit the pause button and develop a local government ordinance or update your UDO to contemplate data centers, you can have public hearings and hear from all of them about what they would like it to include, what requirements the company would need to do to better protect you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lovick.
No questions, but thank you so much for coming and presenting to us.
You're welcome. Thanks for
Appreciate
having me.
this.
I'm glad the weather cleared up.
Yeah.
Commissioner Connect.
Now, we had a fracking moratorium, so you had stated that there has to be a length of time. So we already had a length of time. How do you do another one if you already had one?
Well, this would be a moratorium on data center development.
Oh, that's just, okay.
And you could certainly adopt another. You guys actually had 3 moratoria on natural gas extraction. I believe you renewed it a couple of times because you hadn't yet completed all of the updates to the ordinances you wanted to update while you had the moratorium.
I was just asking, just on the fracking one, we didn't have one on the data center before. We're just wondering, you had given us some guidance. One of them was time frames. So I'm just thinking, well, that time frame is kind of, how long is that time frame?
The Supreme Court has upheld moratoria up to 32 months. I think you have to defend how long you need. So you need to think through, what do we want to accomplish in order to feel safer about data centers coming into Lee County, and how long would it take us to accomplish? I think you'd work backwards, see how long you need, and set it for that amount of time. I would advise you, I'm not advising you because I'm not your attorney, but don't exceed 32 months.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vorbeck.
Yes, thank you for your presentation.
You're
It was
welcome.
very well done as well. So one of the articles that I've been reading, the News and Observer put out 2 articles, I think the beginning of February it was, and one of them was talking about in the Helene Recovery Act that there was some language that got thrown in there.
Down zoning.
Can you explain a little bit to what that looks like?
I'm going to quickly get out of my league here.
I know.
It would not impact what I'm suggesting you guys do here. That is for people who want to change a zoning to downzone a property to a lesser requirement. I'm also SELC's lobbyist to the General Assembly. There were like 15 bills last session to get rid of that provision.
saw that
Local
too.
governments are really not enjoying being held to the downzoning standard. I think we'll see that change.
Okay. That's kind of what I was seeing too, but there was also an article, and I apologize for being on the phone, I was trying to hurry and pull it up because I didn't have it, I thought I had it saved, but talked about, I believe because of that ordinance, that a county had put in a moratorium and ended up getting sued in the provider or the person who put the application in won, like the county lost in that aspect?
In North Carolina? Mm-hmm. I'm not aware of that.
I know. I'll have to, that's what I'm saying, I'll find it.
Okay.
Because it was just one, but I didn't know if it was tied to that.
It was a data center moratorium? Mm-hmm. Okay, not aware of that, but
Okay.
would love to
Yeah.
hear more about it.
Okay, because that was, I didn't know if this would tie into to the down zoning that was thrown in there. But I have read also that they've passed a couple different types to hopefully get power back and away from that down zoning.
A bill to undo that passed the Senate and has not yet moved in the House.
Yeah.
And session starts next month, so maybe it'll move.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Reeves?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. Wish you'd have been here sooner. But I'd also like to get one of your cards, if you don't mind,
Yes, sir.
before you leave. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Sharp?
Yes, thank you again. We appreciate you coming out and letting us know more about the data centers. I
You're
don't have any
welcome.
questions, no.
Okay.
Well, I thank you, but I do have some questions.
I thought you
And
might.
Ms. Swaney, just wanted to let you know that because a commissioner asked for you to present, we don't have a time limit on those presentations.
Okay.
So, and that being said, on January 28th of 2026, Loudoun County Supervisor Vice Chair Michael R. Turner briefed the Central Pines Council of Governments, and I quote, "Loudoun County, Virginia, and particularly Data Center Alley in eastern Loudoun has the highest concentration of data centers in the world, with approximately 200 data centers built and 117 in the development pipeline. There has not been a single day in 15 years when a data center was not under construction in Loudoun County. We have more data centers than the next 6 U.S. markets combined," unquote. Now, I understand you have offices in Richmond, Virginia?
We have an office in Richmond, Virginia. Yes, sir.
You have an office?
And one in Charlottesville.
Okay. So with you located in Virginia, how did Northern Virginia become the world's leading location of data centers, if they're so dangerous?
If you're saying that the Southern Environmental Law Center can stop every bad thing from happening ever, I do wish that were true. I do sleep. Despite my efforts, sometimes bad things still happen.
Well, we're talking 317 data centers over 15 years. Has the Potomac River dried up?
I'm trying to remember the name of it. The larger metro DC area water organization has a report recently that I'm happy to send you about their concerns about the water quantity pressures that are being created because of the amount of data centers in Northern Virginia, and they're very concerned about the future implications of having enough water in the area. I don't believe the Potomac is dried up. I do believe it's full of sewage right now.
I think that's Maryland.
That might also be our fault.
Has Northern Virginia suffered from rolling blackouts or brownouts?
I don't live there. I don't know. I do know that there were dozens of bills in the Virginia legislative session that just ended. Their session ended without a budget. We're in good company now, I guess, because of a standoff between the House and the Senate about whether to remove all the tax breaks for data centers. Virginia is a state that is struggling mightily with data center development and with data center regulation because it was kind of a race to the bottom and they had the laxest regulations. They got a ton of data centers very early on, and now they're trying to figure out how to stop the harms on the back end. You guys have the opportunity to pause and learn the lessons from rapid data center development.
Your website hosts a lot of issues regarding climate change. Do you believe humans are the cause of global warming? No. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We are hosting this.
I don't think my personal beliefs are relevant at all to this commission meeting.
How about, so, I'll continue. Do you know what started and ended the last ice age of 10,000 years ago? Humans?
Objection, relevance?
Humans are nature. Humans
Saw
are
the
nature.
movie. I do remember the giant woolly mammoth.
Okay. Do you know what started and ended the Roman warming period over 2,000 years ago?
The Roman Mormon period?
Yes.
No, sir, I do not.
Humans are nature.
I don't even know what you're talking about, with all due respect.
Well, we're dealing with, your website advertises its concern for the climate, and I'm asking specific questions on the historical perspective of the climate. Excuse us,
I'm not a
please.
historian. I'm an environmental attorney. I'm not well-versed in the history of the different epochs.
Okay. So you can't tell me that it was humans or nature that started the warming?
No, sir.
The medieval warming
in
period,
the-
1,000 years ago?
No, sir, I do not have any
What ended the last?
education in that.
What started and ended the Little Ice Age over 300 years ago? Humans or nature?
I don't know.
Okay. What is the number one global warming gas in the atmosphere?
Methane?
I'm sorry. Excuse us?
It's
Excuse us,
methane, but
please.
I'm really unclear on why I'm being bullied
Well,
in this
you
way.
represent the Southern Environmental Law Center.
I was asked to come speak on the legality and relevance and
I'm
why
getting-
it would be a smart idea to
I'm
pass a
getting there.
moratorium on data centers.
I'm getting there.
I'm not responsible for all of the content in world history or on my company's website.
Okay. Well, some of us actually read things. I'm sorry. I'm asking questions. She doesn't know the answer, she doesn't know the answer. That's fine. Well, you're opposing natural gas drilling because it contributes to climate change. Who here has not said that? Who here has not said that? Excuse me. I am. I'm working on it. Please listen. Your website highlights the impact of carbon pollution. Why does the Southern Environmental Law Center misrepresent a necessary plant nutrient, carbon dioxide, as a pollutant?
I'm not going to argue that the science is, if 99.9% of engineers said that bridge is going to collapse if you drive on it, and 0.2% said it's not, would you drive over the bridge? Okay. I believe that if the vast majority of climate scientists say this is what's happening, I believe in science. I cannot speak for the content of the website of the Southern Environmental Law Center.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you that climate change and environmental justice are part of every single thing we do at the Southern Environmental Law Center. I believe deeply that humans are causing climate change. I think today's weather is a good example of what happens when we heat up the planet. I don't think this is relevant to why I was brought here, and I think it's inappropriate for you to question me in this way.
Thank you.
We're done?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the data centers and fracking economic development perspective from the Sanford Area Growth Alliance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you be respectful. Oh. Thank you, Mr. Randolph.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Ms. Mentor, and other members of staff. For the record, my name is Jimmy Randolph. I live here in Lee County at 3405 Windmere Drive in Sanford. I was born just around the corner in the old Lee County Hospital, and my wife Julie and I have called Lee County home ever since we were married way back in 1991. Both our sons were born and raised here, attended Lee County Public Schools, and are proud graduates of Southern Lee High School. Let me start by thanking the commissioners, particularly Commissioner Vorbeck, for inviting me here this evening to talk a bit about the implications of fracking and data centers for our community from an economic development perspective. I also want to sincerely thank everyone who showed up tonight to speak to these subjects. It takes courage and conviction to speak before a group like this, not to mention braving severe weather and taking valuable time away from other important priorities. This level of public engagement is a very strong endorsement of our community's character and a testament to how much we all value this special place called Lee County. I consider it a privilege to lead the Sanford Area Growth Alliance, or SAGA, which is our community's economic development organization and is also home to the Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for more than 500 Sanford area member businesses and nonprofit organizations. SAGA works to advocate for projects that will expand and diversify the economic base of Lee County while being responsible corporate citizens and good actors in the conduct of their business. SAGA is fully aligned with other concerned citizens of the county and our elected leaders in ensuring that harmful projects are not permitted in Lee County. In that spirit, let me say right up front that SAGA is not supporting or sponsoring any sort of fracking project in Lee County, and SAGA is strongly opposed to any fracking project in Lee County built to power an AI data center. With that said, fracking and data centers are two separate things, and SAGA wants to ensure that the board understands the positive impacts that a responsibly developed data center could bring to Lee County. In our daily work, SAGA's economic development staff evaluates and responds to requests for information from potential economic development projects of many kinds to determine whether they make sense in the context of Lee County's overall economic development strategy. And we evaluate each and every project on its own merits, including data centers. Before I describe that process in more detail, let's briefly define a data center from our perspective. A data center is a building that houses the computers that store digital information, so services like online banking, education systems, email, and emergency 911 platforms work when we need them. These purpose-built structures require reliable power delivery, sophisticated cooling systems to manage heat from dense computing equipment, and robust security measures to protect critical information and information technology infrastructure. These facilities support the digital backbone of modern life, from the electronic medical records used in our hospitals, to the streaming services families watch at night, to the banking systems that handle millions of transactions every day, including the direct deposits that many of us utilize to get paid. Data centers have supported critical digital infrastructure over the last 40 years. When I upload my trout lily photos from Sandley Park up to iCloud, they're actually stored on a server in a physical building, an Apple data center like the one in Maiden, North Carolina, where Apple has invested more than $4 billion since it located its first facility in Catawba County in 2009. My economic development colleagues in Catawba County recently addressed data center development at the North Carolina Economic Development Association Spring Conference last week, and they take great pride in their community's association with data centers. Not only do data centers represent a formidable tax base and offer meaningful career opportunities for residents, but they're a vital component of the nation's critical infrastructure, which the communities along the data center corridor take significant pride in supporting. In many ways, data centers are simply another type of modern industrial facility. Lee County already has many businesses operating in specialized buildings that require significant power, cooling systems, water, and technical infrastructure. In Jonesboro, food processors, tech manufacturers, and market-leading consumer products manufacturers operate in millions of square feet of industrial space alongside commercial and residential neighbors in specialized facilities with their own unique HVAC and utility needs. Elsewhere in Lee County, world-class biopharmaceuticals, automotive components, and the finest construction equipment in the world are being designed and manufactured in modern, highly specialized manufacturing environments every day. These businesses form the bedrock of Lee County's current tax base, paying far more in property taxes than they require in public services. Intuitively, from an economic development perspective, modern, sustainable data centers should be an excellent fit alongside Lee County's existing producers of food, medicine, machinery, and other valuable consumer goods if they are of a quality, scope, and scale that is sustainable. And that is partially a matter of math, utilizing Saga's well-established project evaluation process to determine whether a project could be a good fit for our community. At first pass, we look for obvious red flags. Will the project pose a threat to public health or safety? Will the project impact air or water quality? Does the proposed project violate local ordinances or community standards? Will the project negatively impact the operations or market share of existing businesses in our community? Once those questions are answered, we assess, are there available sites or buildings suitable for the project? What about electricity, water and wastewater, transportation and connectivity, workforce and training? Do we have the capacity for the project? Having identified no insurmountable practical challenges at this point, we think in more qualitative and strategic terms. What are the opportunity costs of locating this project on a given site versus some other future project that might have located there? What about allocating a given quantity of power or water to this project versus some alternative future use? How well managed is the project? What is the risk of failure or disruption? What about sustainability? If a project has undergone and stood up well to this analysis, we move to evaluate it on the merit of its economic impact. A data center that passed the initial criteria would be evaluated in the same way. Data centers represent some of the largest private investments a community can attract, bringing significant new tax revenue and creating stable, high-skilled jobs with strong salaries and benefits. At the current Lee County tax rate, a single project with $300 million in new taxable capital investment would pay taxes in an amount equivalent to a 2-cent reduction in the overall tax rate or $1.95 million per year in additional tax revenue. That's equivalent roughly to 1,000 $300,000 homes with an entirely different level of service needs. A recent data center project announced by Microsoft in Maiden, North Carolina, will invest more than 3 times that amount, while also funding schools, scholarships, and infrastructure improvements. Individually, data center projects are simply one of many legitimate business enterprises which operate at varying scales in physical buildings on appropriately entitled land with access to sufficient utilities in communities like ours, very much like the dozens of similar light industrial operations of varying scale that have been thriving in our community for over a century. In addition to the physical similarities, data centers have something else in common with our existing Lee County businesses: their people. Data centers are built from the ground up for one purpose: to house the computers that keep digital services running. Building one takes hundreds of skilled tradespeople and technicians, like my many friends in the plumbing and electrical trades, and my cousin and best friend who's probably installed half the security systems in Lee County. These folks ensure that the facility is built to purpose, built to code, and built to last. The building itself relies on sophisticated and specialized power and cooling systems with appropriate redundancies that are designed and built and operated by people like my son, the IT guy, my dear friend, Mr. Robot, with a lifetime of experience in robotics and automation, and another friend's daughter, the QC/QA analyst with a science degree from NC State. Once operational, a data center runs around the clock, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Keeping these facilities running safely and reliably requires a team of skilled professionals, including technicians, engineers, HVAC specialists, electricians, and security staff. These are the kinds of practical hands-on careers that many people in our region are already trained for, and they rely on local talent to ensure the facility operates smoothly every day. Lee County is part of a rich and diverse community of humans who have designed and built a critically important network of digital infrastructure that we all rely on to support our lives in the modern world and help us maximize our human potential. Individually and as a community, we all have a significant stake in the long-term stability and sustainability of this network we employ in virtually every aspect of our modern lives. Thus oriented, let's talk about 4 key aspects of data center development which Saga believes must be addressed responsibly in order for a data center project to operate sustainably in Lee County. Power, both capacity and rates; water, both quantity and quality; operational noise and light, and emissions. The answers to some of these questions will obviously differ from project to project and from site to site around the county, but these global principles would apply to our questioning in each instance. Power. There are 4 key components to consider when evaluating the impact of a data center which utilizes large amounts of power. First, capacity. Can the electrical power needs of a data center project be met in Lee County by the publicly regulated electric utility that serves a potential site? The publicly regulated electric utilities operate under an obligation to serve, and they have an established process for evaluating the system impacts of every project. Under their policies, grid upgrade costs attributed to data center projects must be paid for by the project, not passed along to existing ratepayers. Large facilities should be paying higher costs instead of pushing that cost on tens of thousands of households. When new lines or maintenance are needed to serve a project, it will be the data centers that should be required to pay for those upgrades up front, leaving the grid stronger and more reliable for everyone else. Electric utilities have rigorous standards and processes in place to ensure they can reliably serve the large load customer. Through their contract with the customer, they include requirements that large load customers meet reliability standards to ensure there are no impacts on the electric grid. Power rates. The next question is whether a project like this would affect electricity rates for residents and businesses in Lee County. Utilities and regulators are very focused on this issue. Large power users are required to pay the cost associated with serving their facilities, including any infrastructure upgrades needed to deliver that power. That approach helps ensure those costs are not shifted to existing ratepayers. Research from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in a much-cited recent study from late last year has found that data center growth has not contributed to increases in household electricity prices, and in some cases may even help stabilize rates by spreading fixed infrastructure costs across more users, including large load users. Here in North Carolina, the Governor's Energy Policy Task Force recently recommended the development of large load tariffs and other policies designed to ensure that major power users cover the cost of their electricity demand. Many technology companies have also publicly committed to bringing or building new generation capacity to support their data center operations. The principle is straightforward. Large users will pay their own way, and policies are evolving to ensure that happens. Future projects. Speaking of other ratepayers, it's important that we analyze whether meeting the electrical power needs of a new project would limit existing residents and businesses' ability to obtain additional power, and to what extent would serving the electrical power needs of a new project limit the ability of other new businesses to locate in Lee County. Again, thinking about opportunity cost. SAGA meets with our local utility providers to discuss every potential project, and we would factor the answer to this question into our evaluation of each individual project. Sustainability. To reiterate, a modern data center does not drill for gas or conduct fracking. It uses electricity from the same regulated power grid that serves homes and businesses across Lee County. That electricity is delivered through our local utility providers, including Duke Energy and the local cooperative CEMC, both of which evaluate whether the grid has the capacity to serve a project before it can move forward. Water. The next resource we evaluate is water. In Lee County, water service is provided by Tri-River Water. As part of the review process, we would work with Tri-River to confirm 2 important things. First, that there is adequate capacity to serve a project, and second, that serving the project would not affect existing customers negatively. It's also important to understand that not all data centers use the same cooling technology. Some older facilities relied on open evaporative systems that consumed huge amounts of water. Modern sustainable data centers increasingly use what is called closed-loop cooling. There are 2 types of closed-loop cooling systems: air-cooled versus water-cooled. Water-cooled systems are less expensive but require much more water. They are no longer the industry standard for modern data centers. In an air-cooled closed-loop system, the cooling water circulates inside a sealed system and is reused rather than continuously withdrawn from the local water supply. Versions of closed-loop systems have been used in office buildings, hotels, healthcare facilities, and other facilities where health and safety standards are high. Many of those, however, use a cooling tower with a water-cooled system as opposed to an air-cooled system. Air-cooled systems are less efficient, they do use more energy, but they balance that tension between water and power in each instance where a data center is being developed. These systems are sealed and self-contained with no discharge to soil or septic systems, and any maintenance fluids are handled by licensed contractors in accordance with environmental regulations. For that reason, Saga believes that any data center considered in Lee County should utilize modern air-cooled closed-loop cooling technology. Noise. Data centers will be required to meet or exceed local noise mitigation regulations. Lee County can also require other methods to reduce noise pollution, including sound attenuation on cooling equipment and emergency generators, critical grade exhaust silencers on emergency backup generators, engineering design measures to ensure the facility meets applicable noise limits. Light. Data centers are not places people visit like stores or restaurants. They're secure facilities. Because of that, they don't need bright exterior lighting. Lighting is used only for safety and security. The lights are directed downward and shielded so they don't shine into neighboring properties and help preserve dark skies. Emissions. Emissions from backup generators at data centers comply with stringent U.S. EPA and state-level air quality standards. Use of backup generators at data centers is minimal and generally limited to maintenance, testing, and utility interruptions. As we evaluate each project that comes before Saga for consideration, and I think it's important to say at this time that not all projects do, but as we approach each of those projects, the goal is simple. Ask the right questions, verify the answers, and build strong standards that ensure accountability. When you look at the full picture, a modern data center can fit well within Lee County's economic development strategy. These facilities add significantly to the local tax base while operating much like other light industrial facilities already located in our community. Data centers are operating responsibly and sustainably all across North Carolina today, with multiple centers operating nearby in RTP and in the Charlotte area, as well as along the self-proclaimed North Carolina Data Center Corridor in Catawba, Caldwell, and Cleveland counties. As data center operators continue to show interest in growing in North Carolina, and since the reported interest of a data center locating on the Deep River in Lee County back last fall, Lee County's representatives to the Joint Planning Commission have been working for several months with their counterparts from the City of Sanford and the Town of Broadway to research best practices in data center development standards and are currently working with community development staff to codify those standards. I'm confident when those standards are adopted, we will have the tools in hand to effectively regulate each of these aspects of data center development and preserve the opportunity for the right data center partner to locate on an appropriate site in Lee County. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and offer an economic development perspective on data centers.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Randolph? Commissioner Sharp?
Yes, you were talking about different data centers using different cooling systems and different amounts of water. Do you have an idea about what this particular data center may?
The data center that is being discussed here tonight, I do not know. I will say that I had no contact from the data center that was interested in locating in Lee County, the Deep River Data Project, prior to last week. On Thursday of last week, a representative of that project did reach out to me and ask about my remarks tonight and what I intended to talk about tonight. And I did learn from that individual more about the project. That project would not fit into the category of projects that I've been describing tonight that might be a good fit from a modern, sustainable data center project. At the risk of betraying confidence, and I wasn't told it was a confidential call, I will say that the details that were described to me of that project represented a very small-scale project that would be engaged in activities, again, that I don't think would be part of the operations of a modern sustainable data center like I'm talking about tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Reeves.
I just got a question regarding the electric bill for the residential families. When they increase, who does, I suppose that Duke Energy would do the calculation. I know who has to pay the bill if they continue to use electricity. So how does that work? Who's doing the
That's a great question, and I would say that I am not an expert in that space, but based on the research that was done in that study that I mentioned, I looked at an executive summary of that study. It was about 36 pages. It was not the detailed analysis. They had as an objective to study both the nominal rates for power usage as well as the inflation-adjusted rates. And while nominal rates had increased significantly in recent years, they were looking at inflation-adjusted rates and pointing out in the study that in many jurisdictions they had not increased as dramatically as in other areas. And in their analysis, they identified the leading causes of increases in those nominal rates. The number one cause was our aging grid and electrical infrastructure. That, rightly or wrongly, over the past decades, investment in upgrading and maintaining our electrical grid the level at which that was done has resulted in a situation with much of that grid reaching its end of life after about 50 years, significant costs associated with upgrading that and bringing it back up to modern standards. And that was probably the number one factor in increasing rates around the country. There were also impacts from the transition to different types of energy generation and those sorts of things that had kind of mixed results. But at the end of the day, in North Carolina, the Utilities Commission does approve rate increases, review and approve rate increases by the electric utilities. And they are, as we all know, I think, going up and projected to increase more. How much of that is attributable or would be attributable in the future to data centers is still an open question. And the study was very clear in that while there's not an indication that they have contributed significantly to increases up to this point, that's no guarantee that they won't in the future. So the points that I made about the utilities recognizing in the operation of their businesses the need to protect current ratepayers and current business customers, residential and business customers, from increases associated with an individual user, they do have processes in place to require that the infrastructure improvements associated with that are attributable to a specific project, whether that's a data center or another large load customer, those costs would be borne by the large load customer. They also have contracts for power provision that are fairly lengthy, 15 years or so, that would lock in that customer in a use or pay type arrangement so that they try to avoid having stranded costs affect the rest of us. If a large load customer were to make those improvements to the infrastructure and start operations and then fail to continue to buy power, then they would, to use the power, they would be required to pay for it under the contract to buffer the rest of us from stranded costs associated with a project like that.
So who would provide the person to do that kind of explaining? Would it be the data center employee, or would it be Duke? Or
it would be, in terms of explaining exactly how that works, I would say the utilities could provide that answer. A representative from the utilities.
So the burden goes back on the homeowner. I'm trying to figure out why the power bill is going up.
Gotcha. I think, Commissioner, that's a great question on an individual basis. That's what I would do, is communicate directly with the power provider to understand why my rate was increasing. The detail in my bill these days is quite impressive, and I'm able to sort of associate increases with whether it was the weather and me running the heat a whole lot more, or other choices like that I've made. But just in terms of the general increases in the rate, I think our representatives at the state level could help us understand what the utility commission's process looks like, and then the utility themselves should be working with individual ratepayers to explain the bill.
Well, I'm trying to avoid having to try to explain that.
Mm-hmm. I hear you.
Okay.
You hear me trying to do the same thing, Commissioner Reeves.
Okay, you ought to know where I'm coming from.
Yes, I can absolutely help you make that connection.
All right,
We'll get that answer.
thank you.
Commissioner Vorbeck.
I don't have a whole lot of questions, but I do appreciate the information that you did bring. I think just kind of going back off of what Commissioner Reeves said is, if, like, part of all the, the 4 different kind of avenues that you screen applicants, trying to think of the right word.
Projects.
Projects,
Yeah,
there we go,
projects, set of
projects, there we go. The projects that come through, there was, I know when you had stated, it said should be at the cost of the project, they should burden that. Would there be any type of, I guess, communication on our side if there was a project that would come across your desk or presented to us? Are we able to put that if determined there was a cost load that would potentially go back to our citizens, that it wouldn't go? Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I think that the way I approach that now is we involve our utility partners in every conversation that we have before we ever respond to a request for information from a project that's considering our community. And in those conversations, we talk about the steps they put in place to ensure that a company does not come here under the impression that they can have a long-term sustained success here and access all of the power they need or all of the water they need, and then find out that's not the case after they're here. Mm-hmm. So we take great, we take a lot of steps to ensure that never happens, and it's in no one's interest for that to happen. As far as requiring that, it seems to me good public policy that we would ask folks applying for a permit to demonstrate that they have secured assurances from the utility providers that they will have adequate power or water to meet the needs of the project before we as a community would approve that. Now, the distinguished speaker who was up here before I was, and our county attorney would have to, advise me on just how you codify that and just to what degree you can demand that. But I think that is certainly prudent on the part of the community to ensure that the utility provider, the folks bringing the project forward, and the community have had that conversation, and there's some evidence that those utility requirements can be met before we embark on a journey together, hopefully to long-term sustained success.
Well, and thank you. Thank you for that. And to piggyback off of that, I know one of the things that you'd mentioned that potentially causes a rate increase is that older infrastructure and the grid and stuff. So any type of project that could come on, they'd be using newer modeled technology versus, like, I'll throw a personal example. Our AC of our home was came with the home when it was built. It was what we bought when we bought the home. 20-year-old AC was running a $400 electric bill in the summer and basically threatened my children to ever open a window or door to keep from that. But all that to say is we kept postponing replacing our AC. We replaced our AC and our bill went from $400 to like $120 the next summer. And it just was such a crazy, I didn't realize that such an older utility or older unit would be causing that much extra cost. I would have purchased the AC, I would have, and I didn't purchase it, I financed it, just FYI. Still couldn't purchase the AC unit. But it goes back to what you were saying is, there is such a a need for the infrastructure and the future projects having newer systems in place, was all.
And I think the trend, again, as the previous speaker pointed out, is towards, rapidly advancing technological improvements in those areas. As I said in my comments, I think requiring a data center as a condition of locating here to utilize that modern air-cooled closed-loop cooling technology. To the degree we can do that, we absolutely should do that, to adopt the latest technology.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Connect,
I'm good.
Commissioner Lovick.
First of all, thank you for also coming and presenting to us. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
And I'm trying to put mine as well as maybe others visual on, so we have several spinning mills in Lee County. Would a spinning mill, the way, because I worked in one for a few months, and I know they're cooled through the water systems and a lot of machines with power and the heat and noise, would it be fair to say that our spinning mills, as far as maybe footprint and all, may be comparable to what a data center looks like, sounds like?
I think on the power front, the data center is going to have significantly more power usage, and the mills that I'm familiar with here in our community they are large power users. I would characterize them as large users, but data centers would be on another scale above that. And again, thinking about the various technologies that are available, the power that would be required for the air-cooled system versus a water-cooled system would be greater. I am speculating here because I don't have firsthand knowledge of what the monthly power bill is, and we do have some large spinning mills here, as you know, Commissioner. But the comparison I made to other light industrial facilities in terms of the general impacts, otherwise, an industrial building with all of the accoutrements that go along with an industrial building, in a properly zoned industrial area, that does have cooling equipment that makes noise, that does have, lighting in the parking lots and those sorts of things, that does have some degree of traffic with it. The notion that, a data center would be a lot different than that, I think is maybe a little bit misguided, the type of data center I'm talking about. But to your question of scale, I do pay close attention in just the general media to information about data centers. And recently, within the last couple of weeks, saw an article about a data center that was going to utilize potentially 2 to 8 million gallons of water a day. That is real. There are data centers that use technology of that type. Our process here that we go through, a data center that needed that much water would not consider our community because we could not sustain that level of water usage for a data center. So there's a certain amount of self-selection that goes on there in terms of where data centers look to locate. So, again, I think the process that we have in place, backed up by solid ordinances, is one that would allow us to consider data center projects and to do that thoughtfully and intelligently and do a good job of representing the interests of our community in that process. But back to your original question, Commissioner, I think data center power usage on the scale that I'm thinking of would probably exceed that of a spinning mill.
Yeah, I'd like to see us maybe get some data on a couple of our spinning mills to at least give us a visual or maybe mental comparison to
right. And I can
what
definitely
we'd be facing, because it sounds like if something were to happen with it, we'd be facing some different things that we're not used to, but if we have something to compare it to, I think it would be beneficial to us.
I can certainly work on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
And I will, a final point there, as we try to make comparisons to existing industry, there are confidentiality constraints with the power company, even around my bill. But we can absolutely give you sort of industry standards that would give you a comparable there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Martin.
Thank you for coming and the presentation. It was really helpful to hear the different things. I'm I'm going to start with the same question that I asked the speaker before you, and that is, can you speak, you've mentioned this new technology that's available, and that, if I understood you correctly, you've said that you think that you would, your suggestion is to have that as a requirement for if a data center were to request to come to Lee County. From your saying that, I'm making the assumption that that technology already is available. Is that correct?
Yes, it is already available. In the research that I've done, I found a number of press releases from fairly large data center operators that specifically describe that technology. And I pulled those, what I described to you in terms of the difference between the water and the air-cooled systems from some of those press releases. They are letting their investors and their customers and their regulators know that they are utilizing the latest technology, and they're proud of that fact. And I can certainly supply, some of those links to you if you're interested in reading that for yourself. But yes, that technology exists, and my understanding, at least based on their press releases, is they are, whether they're trying to, pressure the competition a little bit or not, but they've indicated that those are the new industry standard. The air-cooled closed-loop systems. There are other technologies, immersion technologies, where you immerse the equipment directly into some sort of mineral oil and that sort of thing. I'm already out of my depth, but the air-cooled systems, if there is adequate power available to make those economically viable, air-cooled closed-loop systems definitely address the water question in a very powerful way.
You had mentioned in your presentation that the Joint Planning Committee is presently working to, did I hear you correct? Can you just highlight that again? Is the Joint Commission working to codify?
Whether they choose to make a recommendation to actually adopt standards, I don't know, but they are currently working on that. I'm in the same building with the planning department, and we've had a number of conversations around the research that staff is doing as we speak to understand what best practices are. In fact, they've offered me multiple links to some of the conversations taking place in neighboring communities and workshops that have been put on by the Regional Council of Governments to help me better understand some of the questions we should be asking when we think about that. So as far as I know, they are working as we speak on that. And I do believe that the initial conversations from concerned citizens coming to this body to express their concerns helped activate that process back in the fall.
I appreciate that, and I guess I'll end with that. I like that you mentioned that people came with their concerns, not only today, which is phenomenal, but over the past months about those concerns, and now you're reporting back that there is action being taken to put some parameters on that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
Good question.
Question.
If history dictates when there's a large water user or sewer user, if history dictates if there's a water or sewer user in the county, the city usually annexes that property anyways, or they'd like to, or they plan to. The only way they usually give hookup to sewer is through annexation. That kind of makes some of this kind of mute, doesn't it?
As far as the Tri-River Water, they are currently serving, as the provider of water to Chatham County, Siler City, Pittsburgh.
This place will have
Right.
sewer as well.
Right.
So usually sewer implies that there will be annexation involved.
Their policies, as I understand them, are that to access those services, if you're in Lee County, that there is a expectation that you would request annexation. And I don't know what a specific project, might look like in terms of, how that would turn out. But that is the current policy, as I understand it, is that they would look to serve customers that are in the city limits.
And that can change this whole dynamic of decision-making, correct? Potentially.
I think ultimately the conversation with the city, from my perspective, around any project would be, with Dry River Water, would be about access to the water and wastewater utility. And we would approach that with whatever the need was, whatever the ask of us was from an
I'm just
RFI
saying,
standpoint.
if there was an annexation, that would change the dynamics.
Potentially, I think from a regulatory standpoint.
Correct.
The Joint Planning Commission represents both the city and the
Understood.
county.
Understood.
So that's a great question. If that's, that I would expect that all of the jurisdictions in Lee County that could potentially be involved in a data center project would have the same standards. That would be my expectation.
Well, that's the standard, but in terms of a project going forward is what I'm speaking of. If it's annexed, that can change who decides whether a project goes forward or not. If it's the county or if it's the city.
Depending on whether or not, if you're coming forward to request a permit, and maybe you can clarify for me what that would look like. Would it look significantly different at the city or the county?
It just depends on what the city or county has adopted, right? So,
Yeah, but we can't stop the city from moving forward with a project, is my point.
right, if it's been
That's
annexed,
all I'm
that's
saying.
correct.
Gotcha.
So that's
Okay,
the
I
point
understand
I'm
now.
making.
Right, thank
I
you.
think people need to realize that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. Did you provide us this map?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
This map has a listing of all the data centers in North Carolina. The biggest ones are in Charlotte with 37. Raleigh has the next number, 16. Greensboro has 9. And there's a few more on there. For full disclosure, Commissioner Lovick and myself are on the Joint Planning Commission, and we are working on drafting ordinance requirements for data centers. And no, there's no connection to natural gas with these data center ordinances that we're drafting. So, more to follow. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate you. Thank you.
What I'd like to do now is we'll go through some of these public comments, but I know some of the staff is probably itching to take a break, so we'll take a break now? We'll take a 10-minute recess. Marshall, put 10 minutes on the screen, please. We're now taking a 10-minute break.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now you should have somehow realized what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but you never really had a doubt. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. And all the roads we have to walk are winding, and all the lights that lead us there are blinding. There are many things that I would like to say to you, but I don't know how. Because maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. And after all, you're my Wonderwall. Today was gonna be the day, but they'll never throw it back to you. By now, you should have somehow realized what you're not to do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. saves me. And after all, you're my wonderwall. I said maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. And after all, you're my wonderwall. I said maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. You're gonna be the one that saves me. You're gonna be the one that saves me. Oh, baby. Say now you talk about the things I do, but baby I'll try and explain the reasons why. 'Cause I've been thinking about the things that you said late last night when every word I said just didn't come out right, and you were so afraid that I found someone new. But darling, well, there's no need for what we're going through, because you and I've been in love too long to worry about tomorrow. Here's a place where we both belong. I know you're the only woman that I'm dreaming of. You're the only woman that I really love. Baby, see what a foolish heart has done for me. Darling, why would you break my heart and make me cry? Well, now you can't go back and change the way things are, and all this foolish talk won't take us very far. And so I hope you're listening, 'cause I'm telling you about the way I feel and what I'm going through, because you and I've been in love too long to worry about tomorrow. Here's a place where we both belong. I know you're the only woman I've been dreaming some quiet conversation. She's coming in 12:30 flight. The moonlit wings reflect the stars that guide me towards salvation. I stopped an old man along the way, hoping to find some old forgotten words or ancient melodies. He turned to me as if to say, hurry boy, it's waiting there for you. It's gonna take a lot to drag me away from you. There's nothing that 100 men or more could ever do. I bless the rains down in Africa. Gonna take some time to do the things we never had.
Get started. Okay, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if we could resume order, please. We'll move on to our next item of public discussions, public comments. Please take your seats. I'd like to get started on our public comments. In order to allow everyone to have the opportunity to speak, if by chance someone prior to you speaks on and the same subject matter that you intended to speak, please just come to the podium, state your name, your address, and that someone has already spoke what you were planning to say. If not, you're more than welcome to utilize every second of 3 minutes. Without further ado, the first I have is Sheila Sherrick. Please come forward, state your name and address. And Marshall will start the count.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Sherrick. I live at 30 Lazy Waters Lane in Sanford on the Deep River at the Hawkins River Bridge. I've been here several times to tell you my story of the things that I'm worried about with my well being poisoned. I have a small farm with goats and pigs. My children and grandchildren all live on our property. We're very dependent on our clean water. But tonight I'm here to say it's really time to vote for a moratorium. We need time to find out just what this data center and fracking is all about. There's nothing good about fracking that cannot add anything good to our community with poison wells, poison groundwater, poison air. I have a child who has asthma. I have enough problems being scared to death every time she can't breathe without her getting even sicker because of the poisons that fracking can put into the air. Data centers are not something that supplies any real need for the community itself. Yes, it helps a lot of people who are Googling or doing whatever they need, but it doesn't help this community. There's higher costs for our electricity, higher costs for our water. Water is not a commodity. We have droughts every summer. I live right on the river. I see how low that river gets every summer. So we don't have water to just give away. We need to vote for a moratorium. We need to vote for what's right for the community we all live in, the community that you live in. So please consider a moratorium. Thank you.
Lindsay Knapp.
Hey, thank you so very much for allowing me to comment today. My name is Lindsay Knapp. I am an attorney and Army veteran, and I am also a local business owner and own a business in Jonesboro.
Your address, please.
I'm at 126 West Main Street in Sanford. Now, I've lived in Sanford for the better part of 20 years, and what I know that the only thing that runs deeper than Deep River are the people that live in Lee County and the people behind me. So real quickly, I just want, by a show of hands, how many here are here tonight to support the data center at Deep River? All right, showing no hands. I can't help but notice that of the presentations that we were given today, that even Mr. Randolph's presentation didn't really advocate for the data centers. It certainly didn't advocate for fracking, right? He gave a list of different things that might be advantageous for a data center to arrive in Lee County, but none of those had the characteristics of the one that is trying to come here now. So what I heard from him was, oh, geez, well, I guess maybe a moratorium might be great, right? Because we don't have the data, we don't have the information, and he doesn't have the background to be giving us that, right? His degree is in political science. His business is economics, where the speaker before him has an ESQ behind her name, has a doctorate, right? She's from the Southern Environmental Law Group. She has the depth and experience that we wanted to hear tonight, and we did. So in addition to that, the citizens of Lee County, if I was going to bring in an AI center, I would probably pick Lee County too, because they didn't expect that the folks in Lee County, in a red county, would be coming out and be caring about their water and their environment the way that we do. But we have seen what our brothers and sisters in the South have had to endure. We have seen the Cape River Basin be contaminated. My dear friend Carol Olinger with Action NC has to get dialysis 3 days a week from consuming the water for decades in the Cape Fear Basin. So we know what happens when businesses come into rural places with their money and promises of economic development. Dialysis happens. People get sick. And the people in Lee County want to stay and live here. And that's what we know. That's why we actually elected you folks, because we know you care about Lee County too. We know why you're here. We know what you want your legacy to be. And we know that you want your legacy to be protecting your kids, your grandkids, your parents, your grandmother, your grandfather, because you do not want to be the one driving them to dialysis 3 days a week because of the contaminated water that you could allow by allowing these data centers here in Lee County. Thank you very much.
Jim McCarthy, Sr.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jim McCarthy, and I live here in Lee County at 2634 Wellington Drive. I appreciate the chance to speak tonight. It's clear this issue matters to a lot of people here. Conversations like this show that folks here care deeply about the future of where we live, and that's something I think we should all value. Now, technology and the infrastructure that supports it, including data centers, are becoming part of modern life. They support businesses, healthcare systems, education, and communication. That reality is not going away. At the same time, concerns about water use, energy sources, and environmental impacts are completely legitimate and must be addressed accordingly. And responsible, clean drinking water and responsible stewardship of our natural resources should always be part of the discussion about development in Lee County. So for me, this really isn't about being for or against technology. The real question is how we manage growth responsibly and how we make sure that any development truly serves the long-term interests of the people who live here. No matter where someone stands on this issue, I think everyone benefits when we slow down, gather the facts, and make decisions that protect both the future of our economy and the natural resources that make Lee County such a special place to call home. A rush to judgment is a rush to regret. We should listen and learn from others' mistakes. A moratorium makes perfect sense at a time like this. These are the kinds of conversations healthy communities should be having. Thank you for your time and for the work you do for our county.
Thank you, sir. Randy Nixon.
Good evening. My name is Randy Nixon. I live at 1147 Cumnock Road. I'm here yet again to ask for a moratorium on drilling and fracking in data centers. I, like many others, have been coming here and asking for this since Thanksgiving of last year. I told y'all months ago if you didn't prioritize our children, this would get ugly. Now you see. I want to thank the Democrats on this board that have reached out to me personally and reassured me if they had the majority vote, this would have been passed. Frankly, I believe them. Alas, I'm a registered Republican, like many here, and I used to think that meant something good, virtuous, standing up for what's right, conservative values meant to protect working class families and their children. Republicans once fought for the abolition of slavery. Now when I tell people I'm a Republican, it's embarrassing. Commissioner Netsch, Commissioner Martin, and Commissioner Vorbeck, this county needs you. I know you all told yourselves when you ran for these positions you would be willing to stand up and fight for this county and its people. Well, we're all here now, and we need you to do just that. It is us who put you in those seats, and if you continue to look to Kirk Smith on what to do and how to vote, I suggest you quit. Mr. Smith, your ego clouds your judgment. You hurt not only yourself, but the security of this county. You call Sand Hills conspiracy theorists, but there's no bigger conspiracy theorist here than you. We've read the rant. You claim we're all here because of a Chinese Communist Party funded PSYOP? Those are your words. After what I've seen here these past few months and just tonight, I can't help but think maybe you're funded by China. Because you seem dead set on making sure life expectancies go down and child cancer goes up. Now, I don't expect you to come back to Earth. I certainly don't think you're qualified to sit in that chair. Tonight you've talked about dinosaurs and Romans. I wonder if this board should be drug tested. I'm praying the rest of you save us from this madness. Thank you, and God bless America.
Thank you, sir. David Beanley. David Beanley.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dave Boley, 3201 Hillendale Drive.
Sanford.
Correct.
Sorry, I mispronounced your name.
No worries. Thank you for the special speakers that were brought up, very informative, very helpful. And let's see, so we had the conference out at 5:30 in the hall here, and with that, and it was mentioned also during the meeting over the last hour and a half, it's become clear to me that certainly we need to protect the health of the people of Lee County and Sanford, and we need to protect the best interest. It's not clear to me that the current proposal, and I don't know the details of which, and I don't know the intent of which the builder with the proposed use of fracking to power or partially power a data center is not regulated enough. I see that the constraints on what could be are very under-constrained. And with a moratorium to give the county and the city time to put those guardrails in place, we have a much better chance of success, whether you can say, well, if we don't move forward right now, it's an opportunity cost. They may go somewhere else. I'd rather have them go somewhere else than have them come here too soon, too quick. And again, the idea about regret. And that's really what I had. So I guess Sheila was the first speaker, is that right? And she favored a moratorium, and so do I. At least, I'd say on the order of 2 years, at the very least. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowley. Ed Whitletter. Ed Whitletter, Whittleder. Is Deb Whitletter here? Okay.
Do you need to check the hallway?
The Whitletters. Not here? Okay. Tom Lee? Tom Lee?
My name is Tom Lee. I live at 2001 Plantation Drive. Once again,
Sanford?
Yes, sir. I want to emphasize the fragile environment of Cumnock, where they are proposing a lot of these projects is over the most unstable ground in Lee County. As I said before, it's a honeycomb of coal mines under the entire area, and we don't know where they are. There's no map. I do know it goes all the way to 421. But I just want you, with all this information you've gotten tonight, think about what is going to benefit the citizens of Lee County, and is it going to benefit people away from Lee County that won't be here responsible for what's left behind. We have had some great industries here in Lee County. All of you are too young to remember or see back in the days when our creeks used to run blue one day and red the next day. At 4 o'clock every afternoon, the textile plants would dump the water in the creeks. You can go dig in the mud behind these places now, and you can still find sediment that's red and blue, all the way down to Carolina Trace. So they're gone, but what they left is still here. Don't know if it's harmful or not, but we need to, your job, obviously, is to protect the people of Lee County. And do we benefit from all these new industries? I'm pro-business, but we have to look what are the benefits of the people here.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer Lowe. Jennifer Lowe.
My name is Jennifer Lowe, and I live at 240 Edwards Road, Sanford, North Carolina. I just wanted to say a lot of matters, or my concerns I had was here today have already been covered. But I just want to say that the decisions made here today are really important because it affects our generation, and it affects our children's generation, and it affects our grandchildren's generations. So I just want you to think about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Eddie Odom. He left. Kyle Winters.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Winters. I live at 948 River Point Road here in Lee County. I live and work in Lee County, and River Point Road is on the Deep River. And so for me, for my wife, our kids, we drink from the well. Even a closed loop system in a data center still expels chemicals into the environment. Some of those chemicals that they use are anything as such as biocides, algicides, corrosion inhibitors. All of those go through the plant and then out into the river. Now, as someone did mention, the Deep River isn't even that deep. I fish, I hunt, I'm a staunch conservative, and I believe in conserving our land and our resources for our families. I'm pro-business, and so I'm pro-business. It's not about politics. It's more about preserving our county. Every industry wants to move to North Carolina right now. You look at Wolfspeed that just opened up. Wolfspeed just opened up, and they're already closing down. They have a 1/4-mile building right now, and they just laid off a ton of workforce. Data centers, as someone did say, don't employ workers. They have just enough staff to keep the building running, someone to turn the lights on and off. That's it. We can bring other industries in to this area to employ people in this county. So for me, I'm voting for a moratorium. We can always take time and learn more before we bring a business in, especially a company, Deep River Data, established April 30th, 2025. Less than a year old. What kind of business do you call out to your home or to your business to service your company that's less than a year old? It sounds like a fly-by-night roofing company that changes their sign every year because they want to avoid any kind of repercussions. So my prediction is that this data center is going to come in, use up the resources, get as much money as they can, file for bankruptcy, and liquidate their assets. So that's what I think, and I'm encouraging everyone here to just take time. I'm urging you for a moratorium on this. Thank you for letting me speak.
Mayla Harris.
I'm Ayala Harris. I live at 2107 Lakeland Drive in Sanford. I am a retired clinician of 35 years. 17 of those years, I worked as a hospice social worker. I'm asking you today because I know you're all listening, including everybody here, but are you hearing? I think we have very similar jobs. I have been a caregiver for 35 years. I've tried to minimize my patients from committing suicide. I've tried to get my batterers to stop beating people, tried to get pedophiles to stop abusing children. I'm here today to share that in the 17 years that I've worked for hospice, when I held the hand of someone dying or had conversations months ahead of time with them, the most profound impact on their lives was regret. Will you have regret? People lose sight of trusting their gut. We are easily distracted these days. We, the citizens, the neighbors, your friends, even the people you don't like, may be here telling you, danger. If you can imagine, after 35 years of being as a clinician, I've had my life threatened. I've had to stand by people who I don't support in their opinions because it's my job to express compassion and to help everyone. You have an opportunity to stand by the citizens of Lee County. You have the opportunity not to live with regret. You have a responsibility to take care of Lee County, our military, our mothers, our fathers, our children, our nurses, our business people, our homeless people, our hotel owners. I used to have on my bio at my last job that we are strongest when we are holding someone else's hand. We are extending our hand to you today, perhaps not eloquently, perhaps with anger, perhaps with misinformation or misunderstanding, but we have a responsibility as humans and as citizens to take care of one another. I support a moratorium. I do not support fracking. I also don't support data centers. That's a whole other history that I won't have time to address in terms of for mental health reasons. But thank you. I hope you were able to hear me.
Stephen Harris.
I'm Stephen Harris. I also live at 2107 Lakeland Drive with that really good last speaker. So I kind of feel there's a plant in the audience because she talked about people on dialysis. I place dialysis catheters at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center on people that look at me and say, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I eat right, I don't understand why my kidneys failed. My nephrologist told me it was heavy metals. So to kind of, there's a lot of data and statistics, but in my role, I place vascular access devices on children with leukemia. I've seen what that does. An earlier speaker said, data centers are one thing, fracking is another thing. But if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, this company wants to place a data center right near a closed well, right near a river. So the usage of water, I think, is self-explanatory there. And the usage of a well, which has been capped off for 20 years and uninspected, and we really don't know the condition of what's going on in that well now, spells certainly danger to me. And I would ask for a moratorium so we have time to study not only the possibility of a data center, but the location where they want to go and its current safety without even a new data center, let alone what fracking does. There is no safe way to frack. I mean, that's been well established. There have been more than 1,000 peer-reviewed journals on the dangers of fracking. People that live near a fracking area, their life expectancy will go down. That is not subject for debate. That is clinically proven. Children that live near fracking centers, cancer rates will go up. That is not up for debate. That is clinically proven. I'm not going to take any more time except please consider our request for a moratorium, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Dr. Kate Hitchcock. Annette Hitchcock.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Kate Annette Hitchcock, 2717 Bristol Way, Sanford. I am a emeritus professor at North Carolina State University.
A what professor?
Emeritus.
Okay.
Yep. And textiles, I can talk to you about spinning mills whenever you want. My partner and I decided to move to Sanford 5 years ago. We chose Sanford, and I want to emphasize, we chose Sanford. We could have gone anywhere within a good driving distance. So I'm surprised that I find myself standing here defending the quality of life that I chose Sanford for tonight. I travel back and forth to Europe a lot, and I have come, when people say, where are you from? I say Sanford, North Carolina, not Raleigh, not close to Chapel Hill. I say Sanford. It's right in the middle. It's a great place. We love being here. And so I would like you to carefully consider delaying the possibility of this data center opening by enacting this moratorium. I would also like you to consider, I feel privileged to be able to be here tonight and sit with all these wonderful people who make me very proud to be in Sanford. But I would imagine that for every one person sitting here, there's another 50 who are working or caring for elderly parents or for children who don't have transportation, who are not able to be here tonight. So I think that consider us a representative group of possibly a larger group of people who a delay on ensuring that we continue the quality of life will give all those other people a chance to speak. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Travis Harmon. Travis Harmon.
Good evening. I'm Travis Hartman, 117 Tower Ridge Lane here in Sanford. Does anybody hear that high-pitched tone? Anybody out there? Oh, I do. I've got tinnitus. It's a gift from the Army. Had a career with that. It's a 10% disability rating with the VA. A lot of people have been talking about the dangers with the groundwater. There's also the noise pollution. That was mentioned by the first speaker. It was mentioned by the second speaker. It's cumulative. It's permanent. I will always hear that tone. People with tinnitus, 40% higher suicide rate. So it's not somebody might get something or they get a little upset tummy from whatever else. No, this is real. There's communities where people miles away are developing tinnitus because there's inadequate soundproofing, there's inadequate barriers. It's not always the volume, it's the tone and the persistence that make it happen. There are places I can't go. I couldn't sit in one of those two seats there if that fan was louder in the projector because it would cause a high pitch ringing, very loud, and I couldn't hear a lot of conversations. But it's real. There's problems that are there. And this is something I encourage you. Consider the moratorium. Take the time. Get that opportunity to do the additional research and see what's needed for Sanford to help protect people. Because I don't wish this on anybody. It seems rather minor. I've had friends, service members, lost a leg, lost a limb, and I feel bad to complain that I just got a constant ringing in my ears. But it's something that we could just do a little more research. We could get a little more insight, and we could take better care of it. We can make sure the standards are in place, and that when a permit is presented, or the request, I'll throw off the terms, but all the right documentation requesting to build out the new data center, that there's the right considerations, because Saga, because others have had the opportunity to do the research. So while you have the time, please consider the moratorium, make the time, get the opportunity to learn more. Oh, also, my PhD is in artificial intelligence. I don't care if there's it does no benefit for me to have data center here. My processing can be in Northern Virginia. And why is it happening in Northern Virginia? Because of May East, the first private internet exchange in the early 90s was built there. And since then, there's been the continuity of build out since that was the first place. So with that, and hopefully that answered your question earlier, why they have all the data centers since the early 90s. May East, which is the counterpart to May West, the data center in Silicon Valley. Thank you very much for your time.
Onisa Morera? Onisa Morera? Did I pronounce that correctly? Going once, going twice. Onisa Morera. Tormer Drive. Okay, moving on. Catherine Dudley.
Catherine Dudley, 3108 Pine Lake Drive in Sanford. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Most of my concerns have been already covered, but I just want to urge you to consider a moratorium, particularly for having the time to develop strong standards. And as I was looking at information about this, I was reading something from the Brookings Institute, a very long article about data centers and some of the concerns. And they end with the need to slow down. And they say states and regions are beginning to remember that their land, approvals, infrastructure, water, and electricity are invaluable. And so they remind us to slow down so that you get the right standards in place before you make any decisions. I urge you to agree on a moratorium.
Thank you, Mary. Mr. Coggins, I believe, I can't read the first name, it's either Weston or, is it Weston?
Yes.
Okay.
Had
The
I
ink
known-
stopped.
Say that again.
The ink stopped.
That's okay. Had I known I was going to speak tonight, I would have shaved my head, but I didn't know I was going to speak tonight. Weston Coggins, 1124 Creekwood Road in Sanford. Licensed plumber, licensed well seal and sanitation, and septic. We'll back up a little bit. Let's get this quickie. Everything that we do in plumbing and in wells and even in septic goes to protecting the water. We've got in our shop, there's a poster of a plumber from like the 40s or 50s, and he's got overalls on. And he's standing on top of the earth, and it says, "The plumber protects the health of the nation." You know, we might get dirty sometimes, okay? But so a couple of things I want to educate you on, okay? And I didn't know this a long time ago. Of course, if we frack, we're going to have well problems. Every time I go to my recertification classes, they show pictures of wells with flames blowing out of them, okay? In people's houses, they can't even use them anymore. I know not in this county, but in Harnett County, a good part of their water, like, oh, well, if they have well problems, we're gonna, we'll run them county water, okay? Do you know that in Harnett County, a lot of their county water comes from a well, a huge, massive well, that we're close enough to cause problems for them? So, you're like, oh, that's gonna stop the problem. If a well gets messed up, we'll just run water. Where do you think water comes from? Right, and I didn't know that a long time ago, but I know that now. So I'm really just here to educate you in the water side. I don't know a whole lot about data centers. I know, Dr. Connect, that you mentioned about this isn't about fracking, but in this particular situation, you're mixing fracking discussion with this data center, and so it is connected, okay? And I just want you to really think about where your water comes from and what could happen to it if you don't, our grandchildren, our children, our great-grandchildren, years to come. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate all y'all do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Stephanie Gans. Your address, please.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Gans. I live at 2613 Cascadia Street in Durham, North Carolina. I work at a nonprofit called Clean Water for North Carolina that's been involved in Lee County for many years on the issue of protecting drinking water from fracking and other issues. We just released a report exploring the business model behind the AI data center boom in North Carolina that I've passed out to all of you, and I sent to you via email so you can check out the sources and everything. The difference between the cloud computing and other internet functions that Mr. Randolph described is that those needs were served by the prior non-AI data centers. That is not what is driving the data center boom in North Carolina that is bringing data centers to our door. Clay County, North Carolina passed a moratorium and then went on to pass an ordinance not allowing a data center that uses more than 2 megawatts of power. That's an option. I've emailed that all to you as an example of something that counties can do. Microsoft's data centers in Catawba and Person County, We Duke Energy customers are already paying higher electric bills because of those, just to tell you. Because the power plants, the additional generation that is being added on to power the needs of large industrial customers like Microsoft, the NC Utilities Commission has already said that some of those can be included in our electric bills. There is a North Carolina law that was passed that means that the fuel that is used, right, the gas and other things that are used to generate power for large industrial customers, some of those costs we have to pay as residential customers, even though we weren't the ones that used that power. That's SB 266 that was passed last year. So we're already seeing higher bills because of these data centers. The situation is now, and the decision makers here have an opportunity to not contribute to that. Microsoft and Duke Energy initially made a deal where they supposedly were going to pay high prices to pay their fair share. They never filed that deal as required with the NC Utilities Commission. It amounted to a press release. So there need to be real standards in place, and we need to see the regulatory environment change before we can reasonably expect to not be forced to pay higher electric bills because of these data centers. Another big difference between AI data centers and the manufacturing industries Mr. Randolph mentioned is that those industries are turning a profit. AI tools are not. They aren't turning a profit because of the huge investment of resources and infrastructure required. So even if there is new technology, it's not been efficient enough to this date to make a profit. And at some point, the bubble will pop and investors will expect these products to make a profit. One way large companies, that's right, like Microsoft try to fix that problem is by putting the costs of energy and water and the things they extract from the community onto us, the ratepayers. Another way would be to adopt more efficient chips and cooling processes. A moratorium gives time for that to happen. And as Southern Environmental Law Center said, that is the safest route both on the fracking issue and the data center issue at this time.
Bob Finch. Bob Finch. Is Bob Finch in the hall? Okay. Andrew Bertrand. Boy, I hope I pronounced that right. Is Andrew here? Bertrand? Dashiell Hatzfelder? Is that Hitzfelder?
Hello, Dashiell Hitzfelder, 608 Fraser Drive here in Sanford. Here's a taxpayer and a voter. I don't have a fancy speech lined up. I'm just here to participate in democracy and support a moratorium on fracking and data centers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Keely Purge.
Keely Porridge, 363 Angel Road, Sanford.
Keely, you can pull it down.
Okay. Thank you. I'm asking elected commissioners, city council, I hope everyone comes to the city council tomorrow night, and SAGA to prohibit the use of NDAs when it comes to data center development. When these companies are asking for areas to be rezoned or buying land, the public needs to know. A small footprinted data center is already zoned industrial park is quite different than taking another farm or building a hypercenter next to a housing development. Lee County has already lost enough farmland. Dr. Stone's report last week showed that there are over 8 new housing developments under review. Many residents would rather hear there are 8 more conservation easements applied for. Full states are now discussing bills for data center moratoriums. Local counties like Apex, Chatham, cities like Canton that were already talked about are hitting the pause button. Last week, on Friday, Moore County Planning and Zoning Commission voted to pass a 2-year moratorium. It's been forwarded to the Metro Council. Are you looking to better understand the better benefits and risks associated with this type of development? Yes, there does need a balance of homes, businesses, forests, and farms, but it seems as though we are tipping the scales to attract even more industry. The North Carolina updated fracking rules will be unveiled in May. Fracking is legal in North Carolina. People don't understand. You can't stop it. But this county can stop a permit for a data center or put a moratorium in place for not only fracking and a data center. Fracking and drilling has changed in 10 years since those rules were written. The state hasn't passed a budget. Do you think more support will be added to DEQ? Are you willing to destroy property values, harm the well-being and the quality of life so that you can post your collected property tax? Instead, are you willing to hit the pause button and set the bar higher and be selective on what industry that has the privilege to come to Lee County? Thank you.
Andrea Lee. Andrea Lee.
I'm stood up. You probably can't see me.
I'm sorry.
I am kind of short. Good evening. I'm Andrea Lee, 1811 Saddlewood Lane in Sanford. And I've been living in Sanford for over half my life, almost 36 years here. We raised our 4 daughters here, and this is my home. I think the best people live in Sanford, and I don't want to live anywhere else. But I have a lot of friends that don't live in North Carolina, don't even live in the South, and they ask me, they say, why are they building all these data centers in your state? And they're like, oh, we know why, because everybody looks at people in the South as country bumpkins or hicks. And I say, no, these are very intelligent people in our community. We don't want this. And that's why I'm asking you for a moratorium to prevent these things from coming into our community until we know what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. George Gilson, Jr.
George Gilson, Jr., 124 Godwin Court in Sanford. I'm going to try to speak quick here, but this reminds me of a consideration of a landfill in a county in which I fought and we won. It's got the same benefits, which are none, the same detriments, same risks, same potential for contamination, same negative effect on the citizens, which is really health, welfare, and safety risk. Let's talk about data centers as a whole. Let's talk about the footprint in the industry bust. Facts. These usually have huge acreage impact in huge facilities that are specific to the AI industry, and virtually unusable if they fail. And you can't get that back, the land and the damage done once you approve this. Let's talk about fracking. The potential for river, waterway, and well contamination, the effects of fracking on the local geology in Lee County. Fracking does have an impact on geology and the local infrastructure, land, and often is negative. Ask yourself, is there a benefit for Lee County? No. no large-scale jobs, risk to health, safety, and welfare of the community, vast footprints of unusable sites that if they fail, and it is a boom that will fail, and the surrounding residents will suffer. I spoke in front of the zoning board about a project off Lower Moncure Road recently and saw the board completely ignore the public and the will of the citizens and approve the project despite the objection by the vast majority of the citizens. Don't do that again, or you will be voted out. People are watching. You should be and will be held accountable by the citizens of Lee County and shouldn't take money or our citizens shouldn't take money over our citizens. The citizens should be heard and listened to. We need a moratorium on data centers, fracking, and landfills. Data centers like data developers like Deep River Water and landfill developers like Waste Management and others will stand in front of a board like yourselves and a room full of citizens such as us and lie, make false promises, and deny the obvious at the detriment of the community and its citizens for profit. So buyers beware here. Listen to all here today and pass a moratorium on data centers and landfills. Last, I've seen the Sanford area, the Saga in front of the board, advocate for an industrial product, which there was a room full of people in such as today. And despite 99% of the people opposing it, they passed it. That is a shame, and please do not fall into that same trap. Don't sell out. Last but not least, Saga talked about light during his presentation as a concern. Yet I saw a previous presentation that mentioned and ignored light and the concerns of nearby property owners. So please, once again, do not pass this. Please, please vote for a moratorium on data centers and fracking.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to old business. First item on the agenda is conservation easement policy discussion.
Yes, sir. At the last work session, the board heard a discussion about conservation easement policy, and we have brought to you tonight your original policy that was adopted, and then 2 different amendments, and we'll leave it to the pleasure of the board if you want to take any action on the revisions. If so, which one you would pick, and go from there.
Questions for Ms. Mentor? Questions for the manager, Cameron Sharp? Commissioner Sharp?
No.
Commissioner Reeves?
No, I have a different question altogether. I wanted to offer a motion at the end of the public hearing.
A motion at the end of the public hearing?
Yes. I want to offer a motion against permitting data centers and fracking.
Have a motion to...
Sorry, may I clarify that motion? Is that...
Please, please.
Is that to bring forward a moratorium?
That's correct.
Okay, so that would require a notice and a public hearing and action by the board at a different...
Well, then let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, you have a motion to bring forth a moratorium to present to the public on another date. Any further discussion?
May I clarify one more question? Is that moratorium on what? What is the moratorium going to cover?
Data centers and fracking of any sort.
Do you have a length of
Beg
time?
what?
Do you have a length of time?
Well, if I may interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe what would be appropriate is for staff to look at it and then bring forward some recommendation, because there will be findings, the 4 findings that will have to be made at that time as to the length of the moratorium, what we were going to do, and those sorts of things.
Well,
So I
then
could-
you also have to put reasons for why you're doing it.
Correct, that's
We've
correct.
had previous reasons, and there was one for fracking already, right?
That is correct. We did one already for fracking.
So you're gonna have to come up with different reasons this time.
You want my reason or you?
No, I'm just saying, we had prior reasons, and you had
a certain window to find those answers out. And so you have to come up with different reasons, is all I'm saying.
All
Right,
right.
so if you want something to hold up,
I got
according
you.
to the
That's
attorney,
fine.
that's all I'm saying.
We'll help you with that.
Any further discussion?
So the motion is just to have staff just to bring something before us next, is that right? I think, right?
That is up to the motion. I just know that in order to adopt a moratorium, we have to have a public hearing, and then the, moratorium ordinance would have to be addressed. So I don't know, Commissioner, if the motion is going to be made to bring something to you all to consider and then holding a public hearing, or are you asking to move forward with the public hearing, the ordinance?
I want you to figure that part out. I just want to be against.
Can I offer an amendment?
Sure, go
Okay.
ahead.
So bring the moratorium that you guys would advise based on your given information, the four areas findings. I think it also, since I know it has been discussed that the moratoriums, the idea of a moratorium as to what a lot of people have alluded to is slowing down something. So I know for the fracking side of it, we have had another one in place before. So coming up with that verbiage, presenting it on the April 6th meeting. No,
That's a workshop.
as a workshop, but it can be discussed in there, correct?
Yes.
Yes, it can be discussed. We have discussed, though, that we would not take the official votes
We could-
at the work sessions unless the board chooses to override that.
That was passed? I didn't think that was passed.
Well, we haven't passed it, but it's
Yeah.
been
Okay.
discussed.
Okay, I didn't want to presume
So maybe at
something
the
passing.
April 6th work session is to look at the moratorium, the legality around it, and what that may entail and look like, that the board may consider. Is that what I understand that to be?
Yes, with the public hearing potentially for the
Later.
20th?
Well, I'd
Like,
have to
or
look at
like
the dates.
You'd have to look at
Mhm.
the dates, okay.
Okay.
Does that that will have answers by April 6th?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you please read the motion?
Do we make- Yes. I think the motion, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to have a discussion on a moratorium for a potential moratorium for data centers and fracking at the April 6th workshop for later action to be considered by the board.
You heard the motion? Does that satisfy your need?
It does.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand,
Can we
please.
clarify the motion? Can we have clarification? Can you read
Sure.
it again to me?
Well, I don't, can you read it again?
Thank you. So the motion is for staff to bring information and have a discussion on a potential moratorium against data centers and fracking at the April 6, 2026 work session for potential later consideration.
Does that satisfy your needs? All those in favor?
Making sure
Signify
Commissioner-
by raising your hand, please. That way I don't have to do this twice. All those, thank you. All right, now moving on to the conservation easement policy discussion.
Yes, sir. As I explained at the last work session, there was quite a bit of discussion about our conservation easement policy. We have brought back to you not only the original policy, but two different revisions, depending on what the board chooses. One revision states specifically that only soft costs related to the transaction, such as closing costs, surveys, attorney fees, signs, and appraisals, would be considered. The other one would allow funding to assist with offsetting costs related to conservation easements to include an amount for funding to be paid directly to the landowner for the value of and purchase of the conservation easement.
Questions for the manager? Commissioner Martin?
I have none.
Commissioner Lovick?
None, thank you.
Commissioner Connect? Questions?
No, it's just, we just have to decide which way we're going to go with this thing, right? So, I have no questions, thank you.
Commissioner Vorbeck?
I have no questions, thank you.
Commissioner Reeves?
Well, it appears to me, based on the amended version, that we have a couple of options before us. And is Dr. Stone in?
Yes.
All right. You want to hit the floor?
Sure.
I was of the opinion that at our workshop meeting, you read a policy that suggested that we were going to be limited, or someone offered a motion to limit it to soft costs. And I was not supportive of only soft costs, because I think the applicant should be allowed to come before the board, and regardless of what costs are involved, and if it's more than soft costs, then they ought to be allowed an opportunity to come before the board and explain the circumstances. Is that still a concern for anybody?
What, oh, you're saying, so, you're still saying that they can come and ask for whatever they choose to want to ask for? Whether or not we agree to it or not.
I sort of like
is two
the
different
explanation
things.
he provided, he being Dr. Stone in his, I thought I had it here. I think you sent us this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This, to me, had a couple that included some hard and soft costs involved. I think it's only fair that every applicant be allowed to come before the board. The board has the discretion of approving or not. Even if it's all soft, we can decide whether we choose to do that or not based on our needs, financial needs at the time the application is submitted. It's, to me, quite unfair to say, if I got just soft costs, I'm okay, I can come through. But if I've got a problem that I didn't create and is not my fault, I would like to hear that person's side of the.
And I thought, and to piggyback off, I thought that was the secondary portion of that. I know it didn't necessarily, I know the definition of the soft cost or whatever was up for debate, but it still, as always said, each applicant can come to the board and be presented, and we get to vote on each one. Like that's, so I'm agreeing with that. That's what I always thought was going to be.
I don't want to give the wrong impression that, hey, you know, we agreed to soft costs, and we also agreed to the latter, and then have them have a different understanding of what may happen, right? So I don't want them to think that we're arbitrarily going to just add to the land costs just because it's in a policy. So if you're saying the policy just said, hey, we're in for the soft costs and you can make an argument for extra, I don't see a problem with somebody coming and asking for the extra. I don't want them just to think that's an automatic, right? So I don't want to give the wrong impression that I think that the policy may be a little bit to that statement. So we'll pay for SARD, you know, soft costs and land costs. I think a good compromise would be, hey, well, we're in for the soft costs. Come make an argument for more if you're asking for us to help you with the land purchase.
Offer me an explanation.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah, Offer me an explanation of why you have this additional cost. I think that's only fair. The board still gets to make the call whether you do or don't.
And it'd be in their best interest to put forth their best proposal. I mean, someone could potentially,
Didn't you
offset
have an
their costs.
example of one where the $38,000 was in question and now they've been funded to 30, well,
Yeah, and thank you, Board, for taking the time to consider this further. I appreciate the thought that y'all have put into this, and I did follow up with a couple emails, and one of the items of clarity I mentioned was, many of these projects, as we've discussed, they're very fluid in how they're funded, and they rely on state and federal grants. And there was a perfect example of that. Even since the last time we spoke about a project, that project has since been awarded additional federal funds that TLC had sought. So, and that was the Wildlife Lake Forest, the Howard family farm. So that project now will no longer require any costs outside of transitional costs. So the easement costs were totally covered by the federal grants received. So that was great news. So that project, under I guess the current interpretation of the policy, would be eligible for funding. I think the concern was with, as we talked about last time, with the board's current interpretation of limiting projects only to transactional costs, it was going to stop the majority of projects, because we've now seen that most projects, because of funding limitations, are going to require some level of conservation easement funds, of easement funding as part of them. It was going to severely restrict the projects that the board could even consider having come before them. And that was my concern, that, we talk about intent, and I go back even further. I take a step back and say, our intent of creating a farmland protection plan initially was to protect farmland. I think that was the consensus. I feel like a policy with this many limitations is not going to achieve the protection of farmland that I feel everyone on this board can come together and support. So, Mr. Reeves, I know that was maybe a more detailed answer to your question, but that is the concern, that limiting projects that can come before you would severely affect the projects that this board could even consider and support.
Can I ask a question on that?
I'm sorry. My concern was always that, when you start putting government money in, costs are going up. And one of the projects, I'm looking at one of the projects, and the land was at $13,000 an acre, and taxable is $10,000 an acre. So we're already paying more than the average cost per acre. On top of that, we're only supposed to be paying for the construction cost. What do you call that?
Transactional?
No. They're getting to keep their land, but they're giving up their
Oh, the development rights.
the development value. That's right. So we're paying them for the development value. They still keep the land. They shouldn't be getting top dollar for their acre, right? And so when you start doing math, there was some.
Well,
when you start doing the math, you look at the average cost in that area is $10,000 an acre. We're spending $13,000 an acre. We should be under the 10 if we're only paying for developmental costs. So my only concern is that when there's certain monies available, that starts driving costs up rather than not.
Well, I'm not quite sure that I see where the cost to the county would be any more than what's a fair appraised value. I mean, that's a set rate.
Well, we shouldn't be paying fair market value. We should pay under.
No, yes, it would be under market value. When you look at the formula that they go into and the triangle.
I'm just doing the acres and averaging out the final cost, right? And that's what you're.
Well, I think the important thing to remember is the acreage cost is not going to go down. And I think the longer we wait and the longer these projects drag out, the acreage cost is going to go up. The other thing I'd mention, and I think this is a critical part of this entire program, is the landowner's skin in the game. When we look at these projects, when we look at the Douglas project, their donated value of their land was nearly 56% of the total value of that conservation easement. That's a significant landowner investment. So I'm a little concerned sometimes that we're having a conversation about a payoff to the landowner, and it's making it sound like the landowner may not have significant investment and skin in the game, while we're also leveraging state and federal dollars, and the county's investment is really a fraction of the portion of these projects. And this is land that's going to be lost forever if it's not supported through a county investment. And we're doing it, and I think the federal funds that were just received are a great example of how diligently our land trust partners are working all the time to keep the cost to the county as low as possible. And we're talking about, I think it's important to look at the grand scope of the project. And on the Wildlife Lake project, now the county's share would be 1.5% of this total project. The Douglas is going to be a little higher in its current state, but we're still only looking at 24% of the total project as it was proposed. So I guess the question will be is how much do we value the land, and how much are we how much are we willing to invest in land forever in perpetuity? And if that's something that we choose not to invest in, maybe say it's too expensive now, kick it down the road, then that land likely will be lost to development because the landowner simply can't afford to hold on to it.
The landowner's making a significant contribution for beautification for Lee County and Sanford.
Question on the funds that just came through. Those came through in the last couple of weeks, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what would have happened, tell me what the scenario would look like if we had approved that funding from those rollback dollars? And now the funds.
And the funding came through. Lee County will never, if those funds were committed, as I outlined in, I think, the second email I sent, when the funds are committed by Lee County, it's an up to amount. And whenever outside funds are secured, Lee County is not on the hook for any of those funds. And that's why I think it's so important to remember is, again, the projects are moving, the funding is fluid. Triangle Land Conservancy is working right up till the end to keep these projects as cheap as possible for county. But nearly every project is going to require county investment, and most of the times that investment now we're seeing is going to be beyond simply transactional costs.
I hear you. I really hear you on that. I hear your heart. I hear your vision. I hear you. I'm just trying to understand the timeline. Right? So how long do we hold on to, how long do we wait to see if funding is going to come in? If we had moved forward with funding that project when we were asked for that funding, when does that close? So what if it closes and then 2 weeks later, a month later, 3 months later, we get funding for it? We've already paid it.
Yep. Normally, from the conversations that I've had with Triangle Land Conservancy, these projects are very long-term. Most of them take up to 2 years to close. This project would not have, the project in question that we're talking about that received additional funding was not a project that would have closed in the next months. It's months, it's probably 6 to 8 months away. Lee County, any committed funding that is covered by federal or state or outside grants will never be requested back from the county. It's almost like when these projects come to Lee County, it's that measure of investment and that measure of good faith which unlocks a lot of these other dollars. And then those dollars can hopefully freely come in. But I think if we demonstrate to our outside funders that we're not willing to even offer up, I guess, our skin in the game, then that is not, I mean, it doesn't reflect highly on those score sheets, on those rubrics as they're looking and prioritizing these projects.
I hear you. I would reject that we're not putting our skin in the game. We are putting our skin in the game by paying the soft costs. But what I hear you saying is putting more skin in the game even makes their chances better. Am I correct with that? I mean, are we putting skin in the game by paying the soft costs?
I think there is skin in the game, but I think enough skin in the game to get these projects to the finish line is what it's going to eventually take. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your question.
Any other questions?
So I just want to say, I agree with Commissioner Reeves. People should always have the ability to come and request. So I don't want to have an issue with that at all. I'm just letting you know my concerns. And I still think that there should be, still being a push to change the ordinances for counties to be able to annex outside the city limits, which will help preserve farmland in of itself, right? And I think we really need to push our representatives. Now we have a new representative potentially coming on board to help change that. I think we need to put pressure on them so the state grows within the city limits. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Is there a percentage that you could say, Bill, that would be, I wouldn't say adequate, but put our skin in the game more that, you know, in other words, if we put in
Everyone's different.
certain percentage and then if it goes over that, then come before the board or?
I think that's something that is difficult and in many ways restrictive if we do put a cap on it. I think part of the strength of this policy and the policy amendments as they're proposed is it still gives a tremendous amount of discretion to the board to fund projects. My fear by putting an arbitrary or even a concrete cap percentage on projects is, you know, in a case where we get an extremely desirable project in a high traffic, you know, a highly desirable area for development, and there's, you know, 200 or 300 acres of farmland that might come with a little more of a price because of the appraisal and the desirability of that land. I would hate for the board to restrict itself to be able to act on a project like that. And I think putting a cap on it in the policy may lead to those consequences.
Yeah, I'm not saying like a definite cap, but maybe showing that we want to put more into the game if possible. There again, if the funds are there or not, and they have the opportunity to come before the board, you know, if there is more funding needed.
Well, you know, these projects are highly vetted. You know, they're vetted. The Triangle Land Conservancy, when an easement or a potential landowner comes for them with interest in an easement, there is a extensive vetting process about the viability of the project, the viability of securing funding, and there's the rubric that they go by, the score sheet. So by the time that project goes through their vetting process and it's approved and it starts to move forward, that project goes to our agricultural advisory board. In many cases, they'll hear directly from the landowner. They'll hear from Triangle Land Conservancy about the process. By the time these projects reach this board, we feel like they are all worthy projects, and the funding that's recommended is funding that we feel like is justified. So I do want to emphasize that we don't bring projects to this board that we take lightly and just assume that, you know, these dollars are going to be approved. I mean, I think this is something we take very seriously, and we value the stewardship of our taxpayers' dollars, as I know that y'all do. We simply see this as an investment in the land, as an investment in the future of who we want to be as a county, how we'd like to grow, where we'd like to grow, and also recognizing too, when these projects come to us, and I know I keep going back to this, but when you're donating almost 60% of the easement value of your land, you're serious about conservation. You're serious about keeping this land in farming forever. And I think that's just a decision that we're going to have to decide if we're supportive of or not.
We have three proposals. One is the conservation easement policy that we have on file now. We have a conservation easement policy stating no purchase of easement, and we have a proposed conservation easement policy stating will purchase easement. Do you wish to change?
Does it say potential? I mean, everything is always up to
It says-
negotiation, right?
I'm sorry, what it says, Commissioner Connect, is because we included the language at the number 3, financial assistance availability, because we had the discussion as to what the intent was originally when we drafted it. So it says now, the Lee County Board of Commissioners may, in its discretion, allocate funding to assist with offsetting costs related to conservation easements, to include an amount for funding to be paid directly to the landowner for the value of and purchase of the easement. So that way it was clear that they could come and ask. Now, if you go down for the approval process in 4B, which I think normally these are going to come through a nonprofit, still gives the board the right, and number 4, the landowner and nonprofit organization joint request for financial assistance will be submitted to the Agriculture Advisory Board. And then the Agriculture Advisory Board has 90 days to convene, I'm sorry, let me remember. Then they submit it to the board. All right, then number 7, sorry. The Board of Commissioner, so the Ag Board will consider it, make a recommendation, as you saw in the last ones, and then the Ag Board will bring it to the Board of Commissioners. So then at that time, the Board of Commissioners shall consider the request at its available meeting. They shall review the request and decide whether to fund the request, deny the request, or modify the amount of funding requested in its sole discretion. So I think that you could, at that point, make a determination as to how much of a request you want to fund.
Is that the one that works for you?
Yes, sir.
That's the one. That's the motion.
I'm reading the first one that we signed in March 2025.
Yes, sir.
That's the one.
No, I think the request is
We made a
for
change?
where it specifically allows for the purchase of conservation.
I make a motion to approve the conservation easement policy stating we'll purchase easement with the amended notes made.
All right, we have the motion for the will purchase.
The one you just.
That's the one Mr. Reeves just.
Any further discussion?
Is that the same one?
Yes.
Okay.
Bill, has there been a time where projects came before the agriculture board and they didn't feel like it was the right fit? Or is everything gone through?
Well, this is still a fairly new endeavor for the county, and matter of fact, these are the first 3 projects, the projects that were shown to the board end of last year. Matter of fact, I will note on 2 of the projects, the board actually, the Ag Advisory Board actually did make some revisions to the requested amount and lowered the amount for 2 of the requests. So I think they again understand, of the importance of vetting these and bringing the most fiscally responsible projects to the board.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I got one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
Who picks the nonprofits, the certified nonprofit? It shows that the policy said that some nonprofit could hold the easement.
Yes, sir. In our area, the nonprofit that has the most expertise working with these conservation easements is the Triangle Land Conservancy.
Okay.
But we chose to leave the language open enough just not to restrict a landowner for using them if there was something.
Well, not
that
every nonprofit is really,
Legitimate?
yeah.
I'll say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So,
They're-
yeah, let's just stick with land conservancy.
Do we need those words in
Are you
the
wanting to
policy?
limit it to land conservancy?
The what?
Are you suggesting it be limited to TLC? Or
No,
in
but
the?
it certainly
okay.
needs to be explored as to what nonprofit we're going to be certifying to
Understood.
get in the game.
And I think that would be part of the vetting process,
Okay.
correct, right?
That's exactly right.
We just didn't, we wanted to leave it open in case there was there's other conservancy groups that would be interested in
I
serving.
just want some reassurance that we're getting a legitimate nonprofit.
Yeah, sure.
Sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion's been made to approve the second amended with the words included, to include an amount for funding to be paid directly to the landowner for the value of and purchase of the conservation easement. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Did you get that, Madam Clerk?
Just Commissioner Martin.
Yes. Okay, next item is the budget amendment, which will fall right into what we just discussed.
Hello, Board. I'm bringing back a budget amendment to take action on if the board so chooses in reference to the 25 rollback taxes towards the Farmland Preservation Fund. And I'll take any questions you might have.
Questions for Ms. Waterhouse? Commissioner Sharp?
No questions.
Commissioner Reeves?
No.
Commissioner Vorbeck?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Commissioner Connect? Commissioner Lovett?
No question.
Commissioner Martin?
None.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on, updated agricultural development and farmland preservation ordinance.
Yeah, so that will be me. If you recall, back in 2025, the board made significant changes to the voluntary agriculture, the VAD, ordinance. And in June of 2025, the General Assembly adopted House Bill 126, which amended General Statute 106-740, so we had to update our ordinance. So this new addition requires a public hearing if the local government or a state agency initiates an action to condemn farmland or to rezone farmland. So the statute changed procedural requirements, allowing a board to have 45 days, previously 30, and to hold public hearing and submit its finding to the recommended agency, and added that the agency shall not formally initiate condemnation or rezoning until 120 days after the date the Agriculture Advisory Board submits its finding to the agency. So we've just made changes to the ordinance to come into compliance with the new law, attached a red line and a clean copy. We presented this to the Agriculture Advisory Board February 18th, and there were no questions. And so according to the ordinance statutes, if all members of the commissioners are here today and vote in favor of the change, it will go into effect today. If not, and there is, and this doesn't, if it's not a unanimous vote, I'll have to bring it back in April.
Any questions for the attorney?
How does
Commissioner
this-
Sharp?
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Reese?
No.
Commissioner Vorbeck?
No, sir.
Commissioners Connect? Questions, Commissioner Connect?
Thank you.
Commissioner Lovick?
Does this have any effect if the city goes in and rezones?
So this applies in
Or annexed, I should say.
the city annex it. I don't know. Actually, do you know? I'll have to see. I think this applies just to county, and so I don't think it will apply if the city annexes or rezones, but I can verify that, I'm so sorry. Normally, the VADs or EVADs are within the county.
Well, I know, they're annexing land that's in the county that's.
Well, that's annexation.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's not in the city and they're rezoning, they're taking the land.
Commissioner, any more
No,
questions?
thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the ordinance
Motion to approve.
revisions? There is no requirement for a public hearing on this?
Yes, sir. We have to have a public hearing, and then following the public
Okay.
hearing, the Agriculture Advisory Board will submit a recommendation to this board.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Work session voting protocol, Commissioner Martin.
At the work session that we had on March 2nd, there was discussion about voting protocol during our work sessions, and so Commissioner Martin asked that we discuss that at our regular board meeting. So I've put that on the agenda for discussion.
Yeah, my only thought was clarity in front of, transparency, I guess, in front of voters. So I'd prefer that we not vote during work sessions, but use that time, as we had talked about, just to dig deeper. And if, if we need to make a vote, we can just wait 2 weeks. That was my thought.
Commissioner Commissioner Lovick?
No, I'm fine with that.
Commissioner Connect? Commissioner Vorbeck?
No, I agree with that, and I think the discussion that was also had was if something became urgent of a manner of voting, that we would possibly,
Timeframe.
we would be able to
Wait.
get the recording here on site, correct? Like if we, like if
It-
timing of something came up.
If we could try our best, and once we're in our new facility, it will not be as difficult if we were to have to put something on an agenda to be able to do the recording.
Time your grants accordingly.
I will be discussing that with staff on Wednesday at our department head meeting, that that's going to be very important moving forward. We will try to make sure that we'll minimize that as absolutely as much as possible.
And I guess I'll add to that. I think the purpose behind the transparency voting on camera and or even having the discussion. So, and I think for some of you who don't know, if more than 3 of us gather in an area and we're discussing county business,
No.
it's then considered a meeting and action can be taken on. I don't think at any point you want us meeting at the Hardee's, 4 of us passing county business. So the Sanford City Council, the Board of Education, they have work sessions. The General Assembly has work sessions. We haven't had work sessions. We've typically had to use them as a closed session or something along those lines. I know it felt like we were potentially hiding things from citizens. That was not the purpose behind it. Trust me, you want us having work sessions. You want us being able to have open dialogue with the 7 of us sitting here, asking the questions to staff, things that we don't necessarily. I work a full-time job and have 4 kids and coach, and I mean, I don't have time to necessarily go and sit with the county manager or the attorney and everyone in that entity. Work sessions are important. They will grow the county on what we're doing. Do what? Yes, agreed, but yeah. My other point in wanting at least the voting recorded and stuff is for my own purpose. Like, I mean, I know we have people here that are furiously typing away, but I would like accountability for myself because I'm not the most eloquent speaker when there's 2 eyes staring at me or whatever 2,100 that there were tonight. But I do mean the best for the county, and so I dislike that the article made it sound like we were hiding stuff with our work sessions. You want us having these work sessions. You want us having these tough conversations with a more allotted time. So I do believe that the transparency for not only keeping what my words have been said recorded and not necessarily up to poor Haley's fingers, keeping sure that everything I'm saying right now, right? Yeah, it's hard to keep up with, but I think it covers both us and the citizens to be able to, and I know someone else had commented that there's people that are working, there's people that are watching kids taken care of, so they're not always able to be here, but I'm done.
Commissioner Reeves?
I'll support anything that gets away from these marathon meetings we currently have.
Commissioner Sharp?
I concur.
Okay. Any further discussion? You got your guidance.
Yes, sir.
Moving on. Monthly financial reports, Ms. Waterhouse. Quick is good.
Board of Commissioners, you were provided the monthly financial report for February. I want to note that we are at 96.51% of the ad valorem budget. When you take out the time-related items, all departments are within budget, which is set at the 66.6%. The December 25 sales tax distribution report reflected growth of 11.97% above last year. And I'll take any questions you might have.
Questions from Ms. Waterhouse? Commissioner Sharp?
No questions.
Commissioner Reeves?
No questions.
Commissioner Vorbeck?
No, sir.
Commissioner Connect?
Thank you.
Commissioner Lovick?
None, thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
No, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, guys.
Manager's report.
Yes, sir. I'll try to move through this as quickly as possible. Ongoing projects, the library construction is wrapping up and punch list development is starting. Audio-visual installation of cables is wrapping up with equipment install planned by the end of March. We expect to have a temporary certificate of occupancy by March 13th. This will allow the occupancy of the building and for furniture, fixtures, and equipment installation and set up to support the collection move from the existing library to the new building. We have a list of change orders there that you can see that have happened. As always, we said we would keep you updated on those. But the biggest news there, and I want to make sure you take note of, is that we are planning the grand opening of the new library on May 2nd, 2026, which is a Saturday. So please mark your calendars for that. We will have a soft opening at the end of April, but the official opening will be May 2nd. So we're excited about that. Historic Courthouse project, the construction work under the grant is complete. We do have some last-minute things that we'll be working on, and repair of the parking lot, along with the working of some of the lintels around the windows. General services expansion, Mosley Design Firm continues to work on the design and the construction documents. The Coke Warehouse, we are working to get the feasibility study started with Summit Design and Engineering Services to start that in the next few weeks. Colts, I want to make sure we recognize this group. Colts, along with City Planning, recently provided a presentation at the National Smart Cities Connect Conference, The Future of Public Microtransit Systems, Service Design, Demand Management, and AI for Better Outcomes, to discuss the recent success of Buzzline as a national model for future of public transit. That's something to be proud of. A lot of effort went into getting Buzzline up and running, both by the city and the county, so it's and the state. So it's I'm proud to say that we've been a part of that and something being recognized nationally. You can see the various reports there and upcoming meetings. Remember, we have the Farmers Marketplace ribbon cutting on March 25th. Our offices will be closed on April 3rd. We have a work session coming on April 6th and a commissioners meeting on April 20th. We will be back at the Civic Center on April 20th for that meeting. And then please note too that you have April 29th as our Lee County Service Awards for our employees. Please let Mita and her staff know if you'll be able to attend that, and that'll be at 12 o'clock here at the McSwain Center. And I believe that covers most of the urgent things. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for the manager, Commissioner Martin?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to draw our attention to Manager's Report 6A. I mean, I'm surprised, it's shocking to me to hear that we have 65 kids in foster, in care, in foster care. Like, we have is that, am I correct on that?
We have 51 and 65 would be the unduplicated.
Okay, so we have a problem that's growing in the county, right? I'm reading here for years DSS has had about 20 to 25, but from January to present, the numbers have increased from 20 to 55. There it is. But so, you know, I know that recently there was an information meeting. Am I correct on that? We just missed it, and I should have said something the last meeting that we had. But DSS is going to be holding these information meetings, and it'd be great if we could mention them during our meeting, just so that the public is aware of opportunities to help with kids in Lee County. And secondly, I know it's getting late, and I know everyone wants to go, but not even close to important as the kids, but a measure of who we are really is also how we treat all living things, right? Both our resources and our land and our animals. And so, again, drawing attention to the needs at the animal shelter. So I'll just leave it at that. It's written down there in the report. So thank you.
Commissioner Lovick?
Is it questions or comments?
Well, it's a question.
Question
and a
to
comment
the
thing.
For the
County
manager,
manager.
right? That's, okay. No questions for the
Commissioner,
county manager.
Commissioner Connect? Commissioner Barber?
No, sir.
Commissioner Reeves?
No.
Commissioner Sharp? Commissioner Sharp, we'll go with you. Commissioner comments?
Oh, okay. Well, thank the Lord that the weather missed us today.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that, I was thumbing through Facebook, and I saw people that were mad because the weatherman missed he missed it. I'm like, yeah, me too. So, yeah, some people though. Okay, that's all.
Commissioner Reeves?
I'll pass.
Commissioner Vorbeck?
Yes, I guess I would, yes, I'm glad the weather missed us. I was slightly scared. But I guess one of the things I would like to address on some of the comments that was made, and I'll make it short. This is twice that, and I've said this before for other people, accusations and name-calling and making references that we take bribes or I blindly follow a leader. Sir, I'd recommend going back and watching a video from about 3 months ago. Okay, so I don't
think you necessarily know my character, nor by continuing to make accusations, make it to where I'm speaking now. Where you make,
Sir,
where you make it, you're making a very good case for what I'm saying. My point is, come speak facts. If you have actual factual proof of my misconduct or my taking of a bribe, please bring it with you next time. Other than that, keep my name out of your mouth and a microphone on the accusations that you're making. And you brought Jesus into this a couple weeks ago. Remove the plank from your own eye before you start throwing out sand in others.
Commissioner.
No, sir.
That's enough. Commissioner Knacht?
I'm good. I'm glad that weather missed us too. Everybody was safe. I don't know about the outskirts and other parts of the state, so let's hope everybody missed it. Thank you.
Commissioner Lovick?
Just thank you, first of all, staff, all of you, the work you do. And I want to say publicly to each one of you, my colleagues, thank you for sitting here and taking bad words, but thank you for making good decisions. Thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
It was, I just want to make a comment that it was great to have everybody here tonight. It was emotional and, not everybody was polite around the room. But it was good to see people participating, so thank you for coming.
And I wish to echo the same. We appreciate the individuals coming and speaking their minds. We used to have a policy that said 10 people for 3 minutes, and that was it. We no longer have that policy. If there's 100 people standing in line wanting to speak, we'll allow it, contrary to some reporting in some venues. That being said, my kids and my wife were very upset when the snow missed us, so yes, sometimes the weather gets a bad rap, and we appreciate no storms this evening. In the meantime, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now adjourned. Please drive safely, wear your seatbelts, and no speeding.